Hello, welcome back everyone. We Weeb Online, and today I'm gonna continue the series What If Naruto Was Trained by Batman Part 2. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up, and to watch more videos like this, subscribe to my channel and turn that bell notification on so you never miss an upload. Now wasting no more time, let's begin.
Some people believe that a man with nothing to lose is the most dangerous thing in the world. According to some, fools with a cause are the most dangerous thing in the world. Anyone would tell you that a bored Joker was the most dangerous thing in Gotham. When that psycho ran out of things to do, nothing had ever caused more damage to their city. Given that the Joker was currently free and perhaps more bored than he had been in years, this was not good news for Gotham. And believe me, I know what a dead audience sounds like. The Joker sulked as he sat in his lair, an abandoned joke shop this time. Lord have mercy, Harley, it's quieter than a dead audience around here. Harley paused to answer her lover, I'm sorry Puddin', but there's nothing for us to do right now. We could go shoot up an arcade or something if y'd like. Harley had been busy providing a path for their pet hyenas. The Joker dismissed the suggestion, no, that's no good. Not nearly as much fun if we don't at least give some of them time to rebuild. I am in the mood blow something up though. Anybody got any ideas? A new female voice that no one recognized said, how about Catwoman? I don't know, I think Batsy has a thing for her. Might piss him off, on second thought. That's a great idea, was the Joker's barely acknowledged response. To find out who had said that, the Joker looked up. The woman had a slim build, short dark hair, dark eyes, and a shirt and pants set in black and red. Glad that you think so, because that's just what my master needs you to do, she said, lining her clothes with various weapons. Harley walked over to join the discussion and asked, Master. And just who would that be, Little Miss Ninja? Her ninja comment was spot on, as the woman's appearance and weapons definitely conveyed that impression. With a glare, the woman told Harley, my master is none of your concern. You may simply refer to me as Lady Shiva, and nothing else. Harley was obviously unhappy to be here. Haha, quite a pair you've got for a woman. So you want me to blow up Catwoman, huh? Well, what's in it for me, aside from the pure pleasure of knowing that I've robbed Gotham of the sexiest woman in the city? Aside from my Harley, of course, said the Joker, who was pleased with the way she had just entered and taken over the room. Harley says, thank you Mr. J, as she briefly cuddles up to the Joker. The Joker pushed her from his lap and said, oh, get off me. It's not like it's a surprise. The most beautiful woman in Gotham goes to me, he said. Lady Shiva was already sick of this individual. I see you're both as professional as I thought you'd be. If Catwoman is found dead, and it doesn't matter how she dies, then you'll be given $250,000 for your services. Does this sound fair? Now that could buy me a whole lot of fun. I've just got one tensy little question before I say yes, the Joker said, his twisted smile returning. Lady Shiva said, name it, without displaying any genuine emotion. The Joker pulled back his grin. Well, it's two questions really. I'm a liar, what the hell are you gonna do? First off, why do want that whip-cracking dominatrix dead at all? Number two, why not just kill her yourself? You took out pretty much all of my men here on your own, so you must be pretty dangerous. Now when did she? Harley asked, realizing that all of their men who had been watching the area had been knocked unconscious. Lady Shiva prevented her from concluding, well Joker, you're much more observant than you look. To answer your first question, she started stealing from businesses owned by Oswald Cobblepot. My master has a bit of an investment, if you will, in Cobblepot, and needs him to become mayor. If this Jonathan Crane person was to win, his personal agenda would undoubtedly make it impossible to work with him. Oh that's right, Penguin is running for mayor, isn't he? The Joker recalled, taken aback by how this campaign had become the center of attention in Gotham. Lady Shiva resumed her argument. Yes he is, and we intend to help him win. We'd kill Catwoman ourselves, but we don't want to draw attention to our organization. Batman doesn't know we're in town. If you were to kill her, well nobody would bat an eye then. You're the Joker after all. You make a very compelling argument. I'll happily murder her for you, haha, this gonna be fun, said the Joker, who was delighted to assist. Lady Shiva had completed her task. Glad to have you on board, at least for now. You'll get $50,000 for a down payment, and other $200 once she's dead. Having heard the story through Gotham's grapevine, the Joker questioned, not giving it to me beforehand only to have me screw up like Clayface did? Lady Shiva had other ideas. Clayface did his job and earned his money. Bullock, who had been speaking out against Crane, had his character drawn into question. This will make it harder for him to be taken seriously when he attacks Crane's character in the future. It was a brilliant move really. Haha. You guys are real twisted. Just the way I like my employers, the Joker said, laughing in a way that was rather typical of him. As she prepared to leave, Lady Shiva remarked, I'll bet that's true. You can be sure that you'll get your money at the end of it all. We're not the type to double-cross someone. The Joker laughed, this time with greater insanity. Oh, that's a good one. I don't care who you are or who you work for. There's no one dumb enough to get into a fight with me except for the Batman. If anyone else tried it, well, I'd use their screams for my answering machine. Ha 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 ha. When Lady Shiva heard this, she almost winced. She knew that if she stayed much longer, she would end up revealing how much the man disgusted her, so she left while Joker and Harley were laughing. Despite being a beast in his own right, the Joker was correct about one thing. Nobody was interested in competing with him. Back in the Hidden Leaf, Naruto had dreamed of being admitted to the Ninja Academy. During his time there, it had essentially been his sole objective. But he was allowed to become a ninja at that school. His father forced him to attend a school that stripped him of all the interesting subjects, leaving him with only history, math, and other dull subjects. Naruto was not pleased, as you can imagine. Do I really have to go there 5 days a week? It totally sucked, he said. The boy's complaints made Bruce, who was driving him home, laugh. It's school, Naruto, it's not optional. You have to go there so that you can learn. But I already learned stuff at home, Naruto argued. Why'd I need to learn more stuff at school? Bruce was aware that the argument was valid. Yes, but you won't have to do as much at home now. You'll still have some lessons, but not nearly as many. Now we can focus on teaching you something different. The art of the detective. Didn't Dick say that you're the best detective in the whole world? Was a question Naruto had heard about previously. I'd say that he's over-exaggerating a bit, but I honestly think he's not far from the truth. Bruce stated with a little self-importance in his tone. There's few people on Earth who can outsmart me. That's why you need to be in school. So that you can get smart so that people can't outsmart you either. Rolling his eyes, Naruto remarked, my teacher said I'm like the smartest kid in the class. Bruce had a simple response to that. All the more reason for you to make sure your talent doesn't go to waste. First things first though, it's time for one of the village's checkup visits. They're sending one of their psychologists, someone named Inoichi, to come and check you out. I guess his daughter Ino is coming with him too. Since the hidden villages were the only places the ninjas could go, Naruto thought, seems like we're becoming a hotel for people from the hidden villages. Do they speak English? He asked. Not a word, Bruce replied, knowing that he was asking. You'll have to speak to them in Japanese. I'll try to, but I'm still not perfect with it. Oh, and the Ino girl is your age, so you might get to make a new friend. I wonder how Gaara's doing. I mean, his uncle was trying to kill him, that must have been hard. I'm just glad that he called us so we could talk him down. Naruto was concerned about his other friends at the moment because they had gotten into trouble. True, and it didn't help that we found out his seal was bad too. Bruce recalled the night as being extremely difficult. Jiraiya's gonna fix it, so he'll be okay. At least I hope. Oh yeah, the whole thing with the demon in him, Naruto said, almost forgetting the incident. It must be really terrible to have something like that inside of you and know that everyone hates you because of it. Bruce hurriedly said, it couldn't be fun, attempting to ignore the remark. So you've been speaking on the phone with Temari nearly as much as you do with Gaara. And even more than you do with Kankuro. You're not crushing on her, are you? Like any 8-year-old, Naruto gagged and said, ew, gross. You're the one with the girl obsession, Dad. Believe me, kiddo, that's what you'll be obsessed with too in a few years, Bruce said, tossing his head back in laughter. Now let's hurry home. To make sure you're prepared for patrols tonight, I want to finish up this psychology stuff. I have a feeling that tonight will be interesting. Ino Yamanaka, who was 8 years old, had long blonde hair, blue eyes, and pale skin, was a perfect replica of her father, albeit with a more feminine appearance. Her father was taller, more muscular, and had green eyes instead of blue ones, but they were definitely related. Another thing they had in common was their interest in Naruto. Inoichi was interested because he had witnessed what the poor boy had gone through, and as a psychologist, he was fascinated by someone who had managed to stay glued together after that. Ino was interested because she recalled that every adult in the village, with the exception of the majority of the clan heads, seemed to despise him without cause. Ino was sitting on the couch in the Wayne living room at the moment, watching her father and Naruto begin their conversation. Bruce was seated beside Naruto when Inoichi said, hello, Naruto, in Japanese. Inoichi is my name. Would you mind if we spoke for a little while? If I said no, would that work? Naruto questioned in a sarcastic manner. In an attempt to reassure Naruto, Ino's father also laughed at the joke, saying, I guess it wouldn't. Instead, let's begin this way. I ask you a question, and you ask me one. Is that acceptable? Being the inquisitive child that he was, Naruto was intrigued by that and said, yes, I can do that. What kind of jutsus do you use, given that you are a ninja? Inoichi remarked, getting right into, I like that, before going on to explain, our clan, the Yamanakas, in particular, use a mind transfer jutsu that allows us to control and see inside our enemies' minds. Very cool, isn't it? Naruto acknowledged that it was cool, saying, wonderful, with that, I could play so many tricks. Inoichi began with a very vague question, I have no doubt that you could, but right now it's my turn for a question, asking, how do you feel about the hidden leaf? I don't know, it was my home, was Naruto's best response to the question, even though he didn't fully understand it. I had both positive and negative things to say about it. I might have stayed if people had been a little kinder to me, but that was simply not the case. There's the fact that I'd assist them if they were in danger. Why they despise me so much is the only thing I truly want to know. Bruce, who had just enough of it to comprehend what Naruto had said, grinned proudly at his son as Inoichi sat in stunned silence. Naruto, good response. Before becoming overly irate, you should always attempt to gather all the information. You're so intelligent. Having never heard someone her age speak in such a manner, Ino yelled. Naruto kept hearing that, but he didn't think it was true. Well, I guess I'm fine. Inoichi, did you have any more questions? Inoichi felt as though he knew everything he needed from that one question. Sure, just a couple more, even though he knew he needed to ask more. However, you must first ask me a question, don't you? Please remember that I am unable to explain why some of the villagers despise you. After giving it some thought, Naruto said, yeah, I figured. Can I really ask Ino a question? Of course, of course. Inoichi assumed the boy must find someone his own age more interesting, so he said, that is, if Ino's okay with it. After giving Ino the impression that he was about to pose a serious question, Naruto asked, is the Ninja Academy in the Hidden Leaf fun? This school is incredibly dull. It's awesome. We get to throw a lot of amazing stuff, and the teachers know how to do all this cool stuff, Ino said with a broad smile. We're learning how to change who we are in order to appear different. Naruto was a little disappointed by that. Dude, that sounds awesome. However, I can already perform the transformation. Stunned, Ino said, what? Absolutely not. Now show me. Not right now, sweetie, her father said, still having work to do, because I need to wrap up our conversation first. You two are free to run off and enjoy yourselves as much as you like after that. Since it was always risky to pout in front of parents, Ino refrained from doing so and allowed Inoichi to continue working with Naruto. There would be plenty of time to play later. A mother who committed suicide, a father who drank himself to death, and a life on Gotham's dirtiest streets were just a few of the highlights of Selina Kyle's early years. She had to learn how to survive and adapt, and gradually but surely she had worked herself into the position where she could bend and fight like any cat, use a whip more skillfully than Indiana Jones, and steal anything without anyone noticing. For a while, she believed that she was the only person in Gotham trying to change things, but then the Batman appeared, and he was doing everything in his power to take down the scum of Gotham, even if he was dressed like a crazy person. This gave her the idea to get a costume of her own, and the Catwoman was born. All of the theft she had done over the years had simply been to provide for her and others in the Gotham slums. In her opinion, those wealthy pricks could sacrifice a small portion of their boundless wealth to prevent others from starvation. A few heated moments had occurred between them, but the whole being on different sides of the law thing made it kind of hard to start a real relationship. It was for the best, as both of them had their own goals to complete, but Catwoman didn't realize that her goals were about to take a back seat to surviving. Despite their disagreements, Batman didn't approve of her attempts to change Gotham, so there was an unmistakable attraction between them. With Cobblepot possibly at the top of her list of people destroying Gotham City, Catwoman was out and about right now, planning to steal an extremely valuable statue of a bird made out of emerald from the Penguin. Catwoman crouches on the gate to his mansion, ready to get started, saying, I think it's time for this kitty to go and get herself a nice birdie for supper. This is going to be a breeze, HMPH. She immediately recognized the crazy voice that said, I wouldn't get too cocky if I were you, coming from behind her. When Catwoman turned around, she saw that Harley Quinn was there, too, carrying a big bag. Joker, whatever you're planning, I don't have time for it, Catwoman said. Go check to see if Batman is busy if you want to fight someone. Don't involve me. Taking something out of his bag, the Joker said, I'm sorry, Catwoman, but I'm here specifically for you. It seems like it's time for me to finally see if you truly have 9 lives. Catwoman narrowed her eyes and tried to conceal her fear, saying, "You must be joking." If he was serious, she was going to get into a lot of trouble. "Do I look like the kind of person that makes jokes?" the Joker asked, drawing a pistol from his bag as soon as she finished speaking. "You tell plenty," Catwoman said, tense and prepared for anything. "They're just not the funny kind." "Oh, Catwoman is hurt by that now." The Joker pointed the gun at her and pulled the trigger, saying, "You make me want to do something like this." Catwoman jumped as though she was trying to avoid it, but as soon as she was off the fence, she realized it was simply one of the Joker's trick guns, with a flag bearing the word "Bang" attached to the end of a small metal stick. The Joker burst out laughing uncontrollably, saying, "Ha ha 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 ha, the expression on your face. It was simply invaluable. Miss Kitty, I assumed you would require a litter box for a brief period of time there. Funny." With a sigh of relief, Catwoman exclaimed, "Fuck you, Joker. I'm so terrified of you. Merely half dead. In that instance, I failed to fulfill my duties." The Joker pointed his gun at Catwoman and said, "Please, let me fix that." He pulled the trigger once more, sending the metal stick and the flag flying. Catwoman screamed in agony as the sharpened metal hit her squarely in the shoulder. "Ah! Why on earth are you doing this?" Harley also reached into the bag and took out a red and white striped bat. "We're testing out how many lives you have," Harley said. "We're truly doing you a favor, so you ought to be grateful." Catwoman muttered, "Looks like my plans for a big night out just got postponed," as she witnessed Harley starting to attack. Harley attempted to strike Catwoman in the leg with the bat, but the female cat held her bleeding arm and deflected it with her heel, sending it flying from Harley's grasp and landing safely a few feet away. "Hey, I like that bat. You're in for it now, woman." "Bring it on, bitch," Catwoman said, drawing her whip and slamming it to the ground with a characteristic leather smack. "Mine's bigger," Harley said, reaching into the bag once more and taking out her own whip. Two stunning women using whips to battle one another. With a seductive tone, Catwoman said, "I'd bet you anything we could sell tickets to this." She wasn't attempting to woo Harley, of course, but playing with her was a lot of fun. "Get your lather-wearing ass over here." Harley gripped the rope tightly and pulled hard as the two women swung their whips at each other simultaneously, causing them to meet and tangle together. Catwoman was essentially at Harley's mercy because she could only do so much with one arm, but she took advantage of the moment she was being pulled to leap forward and kick Harley as hard as she could in the gut, causing her to grunt in agony just before Catwoman kicked her again, this time in the face. "Little Miss Overconfidant, how do you feel about me now?" As Harley began to back away from the blows, Catwoman asked sarcastically. Unwilling to let her escape, Catwoman put her whip around Harley's ankle and prepared to strike. The Joker, of course, was the one who threw the knife, which whizzed past Catwoman's head and barely touched her cheek before she could finish her attack. "As much as I'd love to watch this catfight continue, I need to move on to the part where I kill you now. I'll send your head to my favorite bat right now, little cat." She had let her guard down and had been wounded, and fighting someone like this psycho while injured was a death sentence, so Catwoman knew she had to leave because she couldn't face the Joker right now. Fortunately, she had the exact thing in mind. Pulling a tiny capsule from her belt, Catwoman stated, "I'm going to need my head for a while, so maybe another time. I picked up a little something the last time I was fighting Batman," she said. "Joker, see you later." The Joker eventually produced a real gun and began shooting into the dense, gray fog that was created when she threw the capsule, which was actually a smoke bomb, onto the ground. However, it was too late, as Catwoman had already vanished. "Aw damn. The next step is to go find her. We have work to do, Harley, so get up." "Why is she down at the precinct, exactly, Bruce?" on the frequency he'd given Gordon to call him in an emergency, asked in his Batman voice. Apparently, one of the villains had arrived at the police station, and even stranger, she was requesting Batman. "I'm telling you, Catwoman's here and she says that she'll only talk to you," Gordon explained as best he could. "She was caught attempting to activate the bat signal. When we attempted to capture her, she didn't even resist. Could you come look at this? I'm not sure if you're on patrol." Right now, Bruce was at home with Naruto, who was occupied with comparing ninja skills with Ino. He didn't want to leave them alone, but Catwoman was more important to him than most people realized, and he couldn't say no when she needed to be saved. "It'll take a bit, but I'll be there," he said. "Hold on tight." Bruce ended the call and entered the living room from the kitchen, where Naruto was performing one of his hand seals. "All right, now take a look at this one." Inoichi was even more impressed than her daughter when Naruto created 2 clones, both of which performed a flip and stood on Naruto's shoulder. Shadow clones? That's pretty amazing for someone your age, Naruto. Did you learn that from your father? Indeed, it's fantastic, isn't it? It's extremely uncommon for someone my age to be able to use them, inquired Naruto with excitement. But I have a lot of chakra. Daddy, when am I going to learn how to do stuff like that? Asked Ino, a little envious. You only ever want to teach me taijutsu. Hey, hand-to-hand combat is important, Bruce finally interrupted. As you stated, if your chakra runs out, you will have nothing left but taijutsu. I say, learn how to fight, then learn how to use your weapons and abilities to your advantage. Inoichi said it best himself. Mr. Wayne, you're a wise man. I believe I'm beginning to understand why you were selected to train Naruto. As much as I hate to say it, I'm going to have to leave. I'm just grateful to have gotten him all, Bruce said candidly. I have to take immediate action on a significant issue that arose at work. Would you mind watching the kids if I left you here with Alfred, Inoichi? I'm sorry to force this on you once more. Inoichi didn't mind, saying, I've been called away at the last minute before. Go ahead and finish whatever needs to be done. I'm going to go tell Alfred who I am. I take it he speaks our language. Yes, much better than I do, Bruce said, nodding, simply relieved that he had managed to keep up with the Japanese thus far. I hope I haven't completely messed up tonight. Inoichi stood up to shake Mr. Wayne's hand and said, Don't worry, you've been doing very well. Thank you for allowing us to stay here tonight. How successfully you have assisted Naruto in assimilating into your culture is something to be proud of. I'm glad you said that, but there's one thing I could use your help with, Bruce said in a whisper into Inoichi's ear, even though he loved hearing that. Naruto may struggle to make friends at school because he believes he won't fit in my opinion. Please make an effort to assist him with that. Of course, Inoichi said, nodding to avoid drawing attention from the children. I hope your affairs go well. Hey, Dad, is there anything you need my assistance with? Feeling that this was outside of Wayne Tech's purview, Naruto inquired. Bruce had to use extreme caution when he said, Dick's off on a date, so worst case I'll need you to come and help me run some papers, so as not to raise suspicions with Inoichi and Ino. I should be fine, but it's too late for my secretary to still be there. Enjoy yourselves, everyone. After Bruce departed, Ino was able to question Naruto, You assist your father at work? Oh yeah, all the time, Naruto answered without telling her the whole story. My brother and I assist him with paperwork and other things. He is attempting to teach us that earning money requires work. Does not wish for us to be snobbish wealthy boys. Not all rich guys are jerks, Ino said, her eyes dreamy. Some of them, like Sasuke, are adorable. You and that Sasuke boy, Inoichi said, rolling his eyes. You're too young to be considering such things, I'm telling you, Ino. Ino pouted this time, saying, I just said he was cute, it's not like I want him as a boyfriend or anything, yet. Naruto declared, Yuck, I don't want a girlfriend. I want to become a fantastic ninja instead. I want to show you what I can do, so let's go spar. Not sure, Ino assumed Naruto would be a decent fighter, saying, I don't know. I really don't want to get hurt, but you seem tough. You'll make sure we're all right, won't you, Daddy? Inoichi would never allow his young daughter to suffer harm, saying, Come on, princess, I would never allow you to suffer harm. Proceed to demonstrate to Naruto your status as my ninja princess. Alfred finally came into the room and asked, What's this about a spar I'm hearing? Oh, Inoichi said, anticipating his arrival, You must be Alfred. I was on my way to come find you. The children here would like to practice taijutsu. Is there somewhere you think we could do that? Oh, of course, Alfred said, gesturing for them to follow him. The gym has a lot of beautiful spaces that would be ideal for this. Seeing how far he has come should be entertaining. They all accompanied him to the gym, and while it wasn't typical for a fight to take place in a house, they didn't have any words that described normalcy, and they all wanted to witness a good spar. Batman had faced the Joker more times than anyone else in his career, and no one else even came close to him. He frequently attempted to kill other villains when the clown felt like it, but this was the first time he had ever targeted Catwoman, so it was a novel experience for Batman. Why in the world would the Joker be attempting to take you out? You have no connection to him. As she and Batman stood atop the police station, Catwoman was acutely aware of this. Believe me, I know, she said. But let's face it, there's never a good excuse when it comes to the Joker. He will kill it if it moves and annoys him. Gordon finally joined the conversation, saying, I couldn't have put it better myself. But there is the minor problem of Catwoman being a wanted criminal. I ought to take her into custody immediately. Which would you prefer, the Joker or me, out there on the streets right now? Catwoman asked him in an odd way. That immediately silenced Gordon. Well said. We will allow you to assist in capturing the Joker, but we will pursue you once more after we have him. You understand? All I want is that fucking psycho in Arkham, so it's okay with me. Catwoman began, winking at Batman. He's got a short attention span, if it's not related to this handsome fella here, adding, so he'll probably lose interest in me given a little time. Once again, she's right, Batman said, aware that she was correct. I suggest that we use her to get him out in the open and let me handle the rest, since we all know that I am capable of handling him. He won't be able to concentrate on anything else once he sees me. It was a case of the unstoppable force meeting the immovable object, and Gordon had always been fascinated by Batman and the Joker's obsession with each other. There would have to be a final battle between the two of them at some point, and Gordon didn't want to be present when that bomb went off. If that's what you guys want to do, then go for it, Gordon said. I had nothing to do with this and didn't know what you were going to do, as usual, right? Batman reassured his old friend, of course Gordon, this won't come back on you. I think I already have a plan for how to do it too. I'll have to bring in the new guy to make sure Catwoman isn't in too much danger because we can't really use her as bait. Catwoman was happy to finally meet the Red Fox, the new guy she had heard about. I'm glad I won't be in the line of fire, but how is this short stack you just got going to help us? She asked. At her naivete, Batman grinned, almost like Ramen, saying, he's much more than just some kid. He may even prove to be one of the greatest heroes the world has ever seen, in my opinion. It was evident from the beginning that Naruto was going to win because Ino had put in a lot of effort during her spar with him. She had ducked, blocked, struck, dodged, and kicked exactly as the Academy had taught her to do. Unfortunately, Naruto had been taught far too well, and he quickly figured out her form and used it to his advantage. If her shins were open, Naruto hit them. The same was true for her arms and stomach. Nevertheless, bless her heart, Ino just kept coming at him, as if she was determined to prove something. As she took her stance, Ino swung a huge blow at Naruto's jaw, which was actually too big, causing Ino to lose all balance when Naruto dodged, allowing Naruto to hit her in the stomach, causing her to gasp in pain. Oh no, can't I hit you at least once? Inoichi advised her to keep her arms close to her body. You're making blocking more difficult. After hearing this, Ino prepared once more, keeping her arms close together as her father had instructed. Naruto attempted to kick her chest, but Ino blocked it this time, and as soon as his leg began to descend, Ino struck his shoulder. It wasn't difficult, but it felt great to finally get him. Nice hit Ino, Naruto said, but for the time being we'll have to wait. I hear the sound of my phone ringing. I have to go answer it, but I'll be right back. Ino gave her father a perplexed look as Naruto fled, asking, Daddy, what's a phone? I think it's sort of like the radios back home, Inoichi said, unsure of himself. They exchange messages with each other using them. Alfred affirmed, that's about as well, I think you could have explained it. Ms. Yamanaka, you're very skilled for your age. It appears that Master Naruto has made a new friend, which pleases me. Ino expressed her happiness at having made a new friend as well, saying, Naruto is a really nice guy. Why some people in the Hidden Leaf were so cruel to him is beyond me. One day, he will be a fantastic ninja. There was one more thing he needed to ask about Naruto, but he had to whisper it so Ino wouldn't understand. Do you think that you'll ever tell him about the Kyuubi? Inoichi liked the side of Ino that he was seeing on this trip. He was concerned that she had been getting a little spoiled, so seeing another privileged kid work hard was good for her. Do you believe you will be able to manage it? If so, I understand that finally knowing why would be a relief, but it would also be shocking to learn that you were capable of such destructive power. We're going to have to eventually, maybe even sooner than we thought, Alfred had been considering. Despite what the creature did, I believe Naruto will be able to handle it. As they were discussing him, Naruto returned to the room and said, it appears that Dad will need my assistance after all. In about 10 minutes, a car will arrive and pick me up. Inoichi became aware that he still needed to fulfill Bruce's request, saying, I hope you enjoy that. I'm thankful that I know Ino had a good time today. How many friends do you have at school? Naruto sneered, TCH, no way, I don't even try. For me to get along with them, we're just too different. At least Ino and I are from the same region. Bruce's concerns were evident to Inoichi, who asked, do you really think that's the case? Have you ever made an effort to become friends with others? With a nervous shuffling motion, Naruto said, well, I didn't really talk to any of them. For the most part, I only spoke to the teacher a few times and that was about it. If you're going to survive here, Naruto, you need to make friends, Inoichi said in a firm yet compassionate tone. Friends help you distract yourself from things when life gets too stressful. Although your family is wonderful, they cannot be your entire life. In any case, Naruto disagreed, saying, but we have nothing in common. How am I meant to become friends with such individuals? Inoichi understood the boy's perspective, saying, you'd be surprised, even though it might seem like you have nothing to relate to. Everyone is able to understand some things. For the sake of your father, just try. He is concerned about you. Feeling a little guilty about making his father feel that way, Naruto remarked, oh, I guess that I never thought of that. Maybe I could give someone a chance, if it would make Dad happy. Given how long he had been saying things like, good, now go and wait for the car, Inoichi had gotten through with relative ease. Your father will be overjoyed to see you, I'm sure. The car dropped Naruto off just a block from where he was actually supposed to go, an abandoned apartment building with plenty of places for him to sneak in and get dressed, and after transforming into the Red Fox, he hurried to go and find his father. Batman was going to be thrilled to see his son arrive, as he was a key to his plan. Naruto had been expecting to see Batman, but instead he saw the woman in leather next to him, so he leapt from one fire escape to the next, reaching the building's roof. Hey, who's the cat? The lady with the messed up shoulder. It's Catwoman, shorty, but close enough, Catwoman remarked playfully, so you're the new kid Batman has adopted. Did an ex-girlfriend drop him off at your house? Almost rolling his eyes, Batman said, not exactly. Right now, all you need to know about him is that he will spare you from having to deal with the Joker directly. I'll need you to create a clone and change into her, Red Fox. In fact, the Red Fox rolled his eyes and said, again with the transformation and clones? Is that my only skill? Sometimes, Batman joked, it's a really helpful ability to possess. I believe we'll use it less once you acquire more skills because it's mostly just coincidence. You and the rest of the team shouldn't grow overly reliant on it. Despite feeling like a one-trick pony, Red Fox created the clone and changed it, saying, there you go, a perfect copy of Leather Lady. The name made Catwoman snort with laughter. Leather Lady? That nearly would have been preferable to my given name, in my opinion. Trying to get things back on track, Batman remarked, it was very comical, but we're low on time. Send the clone out and wait for the Joker to notice you. It won't take long because the police scanners indicate that he is not far from here. Catwoman and Naruto were left alone on the roof after the fake Catwoman nodded and leapt down to find the Joker. Batman followed, wanting to be near when the Joker was found. She decided it was time to learn more about the boy, saying, the Red Fox, huh? I suppose that's a respectable name, but what is your true name? Do you believe I'm a moron? The Red Fox said bluntly, I would never tell you that. Catwoman wasn't surprised that he wasn't giving up, saying, you can't blame a girl for trying. So why are you working with broody, dark, and tall people? Did you decide to, or was it just a coincidence? Red Fox steered clear of the question because he thought it would lead to trouble. How about we just wait and watch Batman beat the shit out of the Joker, huh? I do want to see the Joker pay for screwing up my shoulder, Catwoman said, a little let down. This thing will prevent me from fighting properly for a month. That jerk had better lose some of his teeth. That was something the Red Fox could support. As previously mentioned, a bored Joker is a dangerous Joker, so the Joker, who had never been patient, found it extremely boring to spend 30 minutes searching for Catwoman. This is awful. Is it possible for us to rob a liquor store? I'm going to lose my mind here unless I see an explosion. Oh, hold on. Mr. Look, Jay, there you are. Catwoman was scuttling into a nearby alley when Harley interrupted, pointing frantically at something. The Joker's attitude immediately improved, saying, we're conversing now. Let's see how many different ways we can skin a cat, Harley. All of this seemed far too simple for a confrontation with the Joker, and just as the insane clown was about to enter the alleyway, Batman stopped and turned around, watching them from the shadows, ready to strike the moment they realized what was happening. The two villains ran towards the alley, their eagerness all too evident. The Dark Knight was about to have his fears validated when he said, I know you're there, Batsy, so you can come on out now. You really didn't think I would fall for the same ruse you employed on Clayface, did you? I should have known you couldn't make it simple, Batman said, leaping out of hiding to confront the Joker. It's not like it makes a difference. I got exactly what I wanted. A private altercation with you. The Joker reprimanded, tisk, 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 Batman, do you really think we're just going to fight and that's it? That is what we have done 100 times. Why not add some interest to it? The Joker's rendition of interesting, which Batman never liked, I assume you have something planned? But of course, Batman, I never come unprepared, the Joker said, taking what appeared to be a detonator out of his bag. My little henchmen have been looking for Catwoman as assiduously as I have. My friend called to warn me after spotting your small gathering a few buildings away. When I learned that one of your brats was also up there, things took a turn for the better. I'm going to welcome him to Gotham style. There was a huge surprise for them from my lackeys. Wait, Joker. The Joker flipped the switch on the detonator, and the building Naruto and Selena had been waiting on was blown to Kingdom Come. Batman shouted, attempting to get to him before he could set off whatever he had planned, but it was too late. Batman glared at the ball of flame, then furiously at the Joker, who simply grinned back. What? All I wanted to do was say hello. Batman had previously been enraged by the Joker. Hell, he essentially regarded it as an art form at this point. He had caused the Dark Knight's blood pressure to rise several times because of the killings he had committed, the torture he had subjected people to, and the general harm he had caused to the city. Despite everything, he had never seen Batman so furious in his heart as he was at the moment. Batman took the Joker by the neck and gave him the tightest squeeze he could. What's wrong, Batman? Did that building really mean that much to you? He asked, squirming but maintaining the Joker's dark smile. I swear to God, if there is even the slightest scratch on either of them, I will put you in a full body cast, Batman said, squeezing the insane man harder. With a crazy gleam in his eye, the Joker asked, and if they're dead? Then I'll put you in your grave, said Batman, squinting his eyes. Oh please, we both know you don't have the stomach for that. The Joker was aware of a bluff when he heard it. Batman said, for your sake, you'd better be right, and then struck him hard in the jaw. Feeling relieved to release some pent-up energy, he disengaged from the Joker. Oh, there goes another one. I think I might need to invest in metal teeth. Ha ha ha. Come on, Batman, aren't we gonna finish what we started here? The Joker said, spat out one of his teeth onto the ground. Batman shouted, I've got far more important things to deal than you, and sprinted as quickly as he could to save his friend and son. Once he realized they were safe, the Joker could pay for his actions. Catwoman had simply assumed that they were almost dead after hearing the explosion. She started to worry about herself and the boy next to her, and the ground beneath her started to tremble and her ears started to ring. As though it would help them, she attempted to shield the Red Fox with her good arm and prayed that he would survive. However, she quickly started to feel as though a lot of things, actually it was covering her as well. Red Fox quickly created 20 clones and surrounded Catwoman and himself with them. They were attempting to protect them from the blast's force. Everyone fell to the ground with the debris, and the clones gradually scattered from the damage they had sustained. Before long, all of the clones had vanished, leaving Catwoman and the Red Fox alone. With 20 feet to go, the Red Fox screamed, "This is going to hurt." They thudded painfully to the ground. Both clones still had some scrapes and bruises from the landing, but fortunately they had recovered completely from the explosion. Well, that hurt like hell. As if my shoulder couldn't have gotten any worse. What about you, kid? Are you all right? Catwoman grunted as she pulled herself off the pavement. The Red Fox felt his head hurt. I guess I'm all right. The clones got all of the fire and stuff. Nothing's broken, so that's good. Everything else is fine, since I'm a fast healer. Thank God you're both alive, Batman said, displaying some sympathy. No serious injuries for either of you? He asked as he rushed over to them. Responds. Other than my shoulder, I'm peachy. The kid's a very fast thinker. If it hadn't been for those clones, I think we'd both be dead right now. Batman knew they had to get his son home and checked out, but he still wanted to grab him and give him a hug there. Are you going to be all right? I can see about getting you a doctor if you'd like, he said, turning to face Catwoman. I'll be fine, Catwoman said as she examined her wound. I think it's just the flesh, no bone was damaged. I'll go and see Matthew Thorne. He'll patch me up and probably give me something that'll have me good in a week. Good luck with the kid though. You're sure that you're all right? There's nothing that needs to be looked at her, Batman said to his son as Catwoman walked off to get her shoulder fixed. In an attempt to get his attention, the Red Fox interrupted, saying, I'm fine, Dad, I promise. Let's just go home so that Ino and Inoichi don't get too worried, he said. You're right. We can go home after I do one thing, Batman said, forcing himself to regain his senses. Okay. What do you need to do? Red Fox asked, unsure of what else was occupying his father's attention. Batman said, his fist clenched, go and see if the Joker's still nearby. If he is, I'm going to beat the living daylights out of him. Would it be bad if I made a necklace out of the teeth? was the Red Fox's only query. Unable to believe he'd missed this on his date, Dick screamed, "An explosion? You're telling me that Naruto got caught in an explosion?" Barbara was standing beside him in a plain blue dress, and he was wearing a semi-nice shirt and pants. "Could you not alert the Yamanakas to that little fact? In case you haven't noticed, we weren't planning on telling them about this," Bruce said, glaring at Dick for his loudness. "Oh, look at all these scratches and that bruise. You poor thing, it must have really hurt." Dick wanted to get Babs to defend him, but she was too busy checking on Naruto. As he writhed, Naruto said, "Would you please stop it? I got enough of this from Dad earlier. I'm fast healer, I'll be just fine." Bruce tried to make her feel comfortable. "He's a tough kid, Barbara. I'm kept trying to apologize and hug him when we got home. He just told me that it was fine, and I'm quoting on this next part, it's all just part of the job." "The kid's more badass than I am," Dick said, nervously scratching the back of his head. "I'd have to agree with you there," replied Bruce. "More importantly, how come you didn't tell me that your date tonight was with Barbara?" Both teenagers, Barbara in particular, imitated a dog with its tail between its legs, saying, "Because we knew that you wouldn't approve if you found out." "I approve of it just fine," Bruce replied unconvincingly. "I just hope that the two of you realize the risk that comes from dating someone else in our line of work." "Oh come on Bruce, just because you and Talia didn't," Dick said, feeling that was unfair. He hit the table with his hand. "Don't you dare bring her into this. She has nothing to do with the conversion. This is about you and Barbara. I won't step in for now, but if your dating starts to affect your performance in the field, we're going to have to talk this out. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to go and show our guests to their rooms." Barbara whispered to Dick as Bruce left, "Did you really think that bring up Taylor was going to do you any good? You're smarter than that and you know it." "You'd think, but sometimes I speak without thinking," Dick laughed. "You'd better head home and tell your dad your date went well. Be sure to tell him that I was a perfect gentleman." Barbara said, "But of course Richard, aren't you always?" while laughing and kissing his cheek. Dick watched her go, blushing slightly. "Woman, I don't know what I'm gonna do with you." Bruce may have been angry with him, but at least he had her happy. "Hey bro, who's Talia? Was she Dad's girlfriend or something?" Naruto began to pull on his shirt a bit to get his attention. "Not exactly," began Dick, and he continued, "Well, I guess you could say she was. Well, see, was sort of. It was kind of like. I don't actually know that the hell it was like. They loved each other and it didn't work out, that's all I know for sure. The rest he never really told anybody, except for Alfred. Lord knows he's not talking." Though he didn't want to delve too deeply, Naruto was curious. Sometimes you had to respect people's desire to keep certain things hidden. Who was Bruce to ask if those memories were too painful to mention? As he waited for his new contract to arrive, Oswald Cobblepot paced his living room from wall to wall. He felt he had been pushed into a corner, even though hiring a dubious group of assassins may not have been the best decision he had ever made. In the polls, Crane crushed him, and Quincy even defeated him by 2 points. He desperately needed to turn this around. Therefore, he accepted the offer of assistance from an enigmatic woman who went by the name Lady Shiva without question. He only needed to ask for something, and they fulfilled his request without hesitation. All they asked for was a favor later on. But the more he considered it, the more he started to worry about this favor. "I gave them a bloody blank check. For God's sake, why would I do that?" Cobblepot kept mumbling. "What if they ask for something that I can't deliver? What in the hell am I supposed to do then?" "Something that you can't deliver? Now Penguin, do you think that we'd be foolish enough to put a man in power if we're not sure he can deliver what we need?" a female voice said, laughing out of the shadows. Cobblepot nearly jumped out of his skin. "Gah! How the hell did you get in here? Look who I'm talking to. Something tells me you had no issue with my security. Oh, and how many times do I have to ask you to call me by my name? You people expect me to become mayor and you're still calling me the Penguin?" Lady Shiva, not trying to disguise how much she enjoyed making fun of the little man, said, "Oh come now Penguin, it's just what everyone calls you. Do you really think you can shake it after all these years? Fine, call me whatever you want. Just tell me why you're here so that we can get on with it," Cobblepot said, accepting it and taking a seat. Lady Shiva started looking around the room to find something to laugh at, saying, "Oh, I just came to inform you Catwoman is still alive. Nothing to worry about though. She was injured and is unlikely to cause you any trouble for at least a week." The Penguin said, "Good, very good. I suppose a week is better than nothing, since it was at least one thrown off his side for the time being. That should let me focus on the campaign for a bit. Thank you, Lady Shiva. I wish you could tell me who you represent so that I can thank them as well." According to Lady Shiva, we agreed in the beginning of this that there was some information that you wouldn't get. My master's identity is one of them. She had no intention of sharing that information. Honestly, you might as well must tell me already. How many people have the power to lead a large group of assassins? The penguin asked, not understanding the significance of the situation. Please, drop that matter already. I need to go now, but we'll talk again soon. Lady Shiva had to leave before he realized how close he was. Fine, but I am going to figure it out eventually, the penguin replied, pulling out a bottle from his fireplace. Before you go, would you care for something to drink? My parents always told me that it was rude to let a woman come into your house without offering her some to drink. Did they also tell you that you were a hideous little boy and horrible person? Asked Lady Shiva, who had never considered the possibility that this little creature had parents. With a deep laugh, the penguin poured his drink and said, they didn't use those exact words, but I heard things like that from them. I don't give a damn though. Those rat bastards are dead now, so I can go and dance on their graves if I'd like. Lady Shiva remarked, you don't look like much of a dancer, after encountering enough villains for one day. Goodbye, penguin. Please be sure to enjoy your drink. As she walked out his window, Penguin raised a glass and said, I always do, my dear, I always do. In spite of having completed his nightly tasks and taken care of his visitor, Bruce was still unable to sleep. He simply lay there attempting to compel himself to fall asleep by turning and tossing. Unfortunately, he would not benefit from this. He got out of bed and went to Naruto's room at around 4 in the morning. He only slightly opened the door to get a glimpse of him without entering. Naruto slept soundly, snoring and raising and lowering his chest. Bruce already had a deep affection for the boy, but at the moment, all he felt was guilt. He felt bad about putting his son in such danger. He had been plagued by a terrible thought. What if Naruto had perished up there? Would Bruce ever be able to forgive himself for such an incident? Naruto resisted these thoughts as he started to move in his bed. Hey, is someone there? He asked as he sat up and attempted to wipe the sleep from his eyes. Yeah, it's just me. Sorry for waking you up, but I did try to be quiet, Bruce said, sitting on the boy's bed, surprised that Naruto had woken up despite his best efforts to keep quiet. I'm used to people coming into my room in the middle of the night. Back in the Leaf, they'd sneak into my room to try and hurt me sometimes, so I learned to figure out when people were watching me, Naruto said as though it were nothing. Bruce detested the fact that that must have happened often. No child ought to endure what this boy endured. You run no risk of that here, I promise. I just wanted to make sure you were still alright. You could have been really hurt today, and I still feel bad about that. Don't know what to tell you, it's just a dad thing. Dad, you shouldn't worry about me like this. I'm doing something really awesome here, I'm a hero. I had people hating me for years and years, and now they love me. There was a paper that had my picture on the front page, Naruto said, scuttling out from under his covers and sitting next to his father. Being a hero has its perks, Bruce stated, wrapping his arms around the child. I know how important it is to you that you prove you can do something good for the world, so I won't take that from you. Just promise me that you'll be careful, okay? I promise, as long as you promise to keep training me, Naruto said, giving his father a brief embrace. I'd never dream of stopping. Bruce knew that was coming. I should probably let you go to bed now. You must be tired. Hold on, Dad, there's one more thing, Naruto said as he rested his father on the mattress. I just want to know what happened to you today with the Joker. I mean, before we went home, you made this big talk like we were gonna go get him to beat him up, but you didn't even really look. How come? Because I was too angry. I was worried that I wouldn't be able to control myself if I started really going into him. Bruce sighed as he tried to come up with a way to explain this to Naruto. The Joker has the tendency to bring out the worst in me. If I'm not careful, I'm going to end up killing him one of these days, which is just what he wants. Wait, the Joker wants to die? Why would he want that? Was Naruto's reaction to that strange situation. Bruce said, it's very hard to explain, and I'm not going to do it tonight. Just go to bed, Naruto, I'll see you in the morning. Bruce continued, he doesn't want to die, he wants me to kill him. A huge yawn was released by Naruto, who said, good idea. I gotta be ready for school tomorrow. Hopefully I can make some new friends. Bruce expressed his gratitude to Inoichi as soon as he heard the words, I'm sure that you will, Naruto. Now hit the hay. You're going to all the rest you can get. Ino and Inoichi were only able to visit the mansion for roughly 30 minutes the following morning before having to leave for home. Every ninja who had been entering and leaving the nation had been departing from a US military installation in the Hidden Leaf and arriving at a different location close to Gotham. Even though they were hard to hide, Things had gone well with those locations thus far. At least Inoichi was going to inform the Leafs Council that Naruto was completely mentally stable, even though Naruto knew they wouldn't be able to stay for very long, which was terrible. According to his research, Naruto was no less stable than he had been in the village. Naruto left for school after saying a heartfelt goodbye to Ino and letting his father speak with Inoichi for a while. Although he was still unsure of how it would work out for him, he needed to make a conscious effort to try and make some friends. A small part of Naruto thought that these children were simply too different from him. That day, he showed up at Gotham Academy with a very uncertain expression. Naruto was left alone after Alfred dropped him off outside and departed shortly after. His teacher could tell he was anxious as soon as he entered the room, so it wasn't difficult to see. As he was packing his bag, she approached him and said, "Hey Naruto, what's going on? You seem a little scared about something." Naruto looked at his classmates, who were occupied with grabbing their morning snacks at their desks, and said, "Oh, hey Mrs. Kane," adding, "I'm not scared, just nervous. I need to try and make some new friends today, but I don't know how to talk to these guys." With a gentle smile, Mrs. Kane said, "All you have to do is go to them and say hello sweetie. Just talk to them like you would your big brother that you talk so much about. I'm sure they'll love you." She thought the boy's little Jilma was very sweet. After nodding and swallowing, Naruto went to his desk and took out his snack. He had never spoken to the brown-haired boy who sat next to him. He wasn't sure what to say at first, so he just stared at the boy. The boy finally noticed after a few seconds and said, "Hey, you're the Japanese kid, right?" Naruto replied, "Yeah, I'm Naruto," recalling that he had been instructed to respond with Japan when people inquired about his origins. "So what's your name?" he asked. "I'm Kyle." "Those marks on your face are really cool. Are they like scars or something?" the boy said, taking a bite out of the apple he had been holding. "No, I think that they're birthmarks. I've had them for forever. It's kinda the same for my hair, 'cause it's always been spiky," Naruto said, immediately recognizing that he was referring to the whisker marks. "Wish my hair did that," replied Kyle. "My just sits on my head and doesn't do anything. My big brother likes to spike his hair though. Do you have any brothers or sister?" "I've got my big brother Dick, but we're not blood brothers. My dad adopted both of us," Naruto said, beginning to feel a little more at ease. "My cousin is also adopted, but I was too young to remember it. Who's your dad?" Kyle said without seeming to be bothered by this. "Bruce Wayne," Naruto said, oblivious to what he had just triggered. He simply stood there and began peeling his orange. "No way. Like, the famous guy?" Kyle exclaimed, his eyes wide. Naruto chuckled as he munched on the orange. "I guess that he's famous. The only thing that I know is that I call him Dad and we live in a big house. He owns this really big company. Think. What does your dad do?" The way he abruptly changed the subject startled Kyle. "He's a guard at Arkham Asylum. I got to go there once, and it was so creepy. I only got to see the empty spots, but it was still totally scary," he said, not wanting to boast about his father's identity. Sincerely, Naruto remarked, "That must be a really awesome job," adding, "You get to see all those weird villains and help protect people." "Huh, I guess that you're right. You know, you seem pretty cool. I think you should meet my other friends. They'd really like you." Kyle hadn't given it much thought, but it was a pretty interesting job. When she said that, Naruto almost jumped and yelled, but he restrained himself and said, "Okay, that sounds like fun. What do you guys like to do?" Mrs. Kane watched from a distance as the two continued their conversation. She was aware that if Naruto tried, he could get along with them. By the end of the day, he would have made a lot of new friends if her suspicion was correct. The news that Naruto had made some friends at school thrilled his family. When he got home, he talked endlessly about them. Kyle, his new friend, enjoyed playing football, and his father was employed at the asylum. Then there was Josh, whose parents were employed at the Gotham Hospital and who was a huge fan of video games. Last but not least was his new friend Jessica, who appeared to love movies and whose father was a stockbroker and her mother was a school teacher. He was obviously fond of his new acquaintances. Even though Bruce was delighted for him, Naruto needed to be concentrating on other things. This was the final opportunity to teach how to be a real detective. They couldn't put it off any longer, even though it would probably be one of the more difficult mental aspects of Naruto's training. If he was going to be a member of the Bat family, he had to be able to process information and quickly understand what it meant. Everyone was currently down in the Batcave, with the exception of Barbara, who was occupied with her father. On 3 tables in the middle of the room, Bruce had arranged everything he knew Naruto would require to begin his training. The child simply stared at them in disbelief. "Dad, I thought that we were going to teach me how to do all that cool deduction stuff you do. All that's on these tables is a bunch of papers. Is this going to be like a test or something? As Bruce approached the table and began to pick up papers, he said, in a sense, yes. These first set of documents are so that we can start teaching about handwriting analysis. You're gonna tell me what that means, right? Asked Naruto, who had no idea what that was. He considered the most straightforward definition. It's more or less being able to look at something two people have written and being able to tell who wrote it. Actually, when you get far enough you can even tell if someone was happy or distressed when they were writing. Naruto, who was only somewhat intrigued by that, remarked, weird, but I guess it's a little cool. What about the other ones? He asked. Bruce picked up the next paper after walking to the next table, saying, this is the ones that's sort of a test. It has questions based that you have to solve thinking logically. Uncertain of how to react to this one, Naruto arched an eyebrow and said, like, with math and stuff. There might be a little bit of math, but it's mostly just about how you work out problems, Bruce stated as he approached the final table. And this last table is to see how well you read people's facial expressions. One of the best ways to tell if someone is lying or not is by looking out at the way they're acting. Little twitches, tapping on a desk, a bead of sweat, all of those things can give away when someone's lying or holding back. As far as Naruto was concerned, Bruce was now beginning to get to the good stuff. Now you're talking. How long before I'm able to do that stuff? He asked. Well, even with your clones it'll probably take a while. It's not an easy thing to learn. I think that if you work hard, you could be up to Dick's level in about a year. Bruce always struggled to figure that out because Naruto trained with clones and was able to learn things at a rather strange rate. Well, how far is Dick? Naruto inquired, not really understanding what that statement meant. Bruce responded with a conservative tone. He can read emotions very well, sniff out lies some of the time, and controls his own facial expressions excellently. Does that sound good enough to you? Well, yeah, let's get started already. With this and my regular training, I'm gonna be like the most awesome ninja ever, Naruto said, thinking it sounded excellent. As with the start of his physical training, Naruto made significant progress in his detective training over the course of the following week. He was able to fit in a month's worth of training in that brief period of time because of his clones. Naruto made every effort to ensure he was learning everything he could, even though many of the ideas Bruce was introducing were difficult for an 8-year-old to comprehend. Even though all of that training had only marginally improved his observational abilities compared to an average 8-year-old, Naruto still had a significant advantage. He also needed to attend to his other training. Along with his school lessons, he was putting a lot of effort into learning new jutsus and honing his taijutsu techniques. Although it was challenging, Naruto was attempting to strike a balance between being a young superhuman and being a typical child. He and his father both desired it. The following Monday, when Naruto had to go to school, things would get a little trickier. Like any other day, it started with him and his friends having a snack, their lessons, and all the other typical school-related activities. Only when Mrs. Kane approached Naruto and said, "Hey Naruto, I hate to interrupt you during math, but our school psychologist has requested that you come down to his office. It's nothing to worry about, he does this with all the new students. Do you mind? Did things start to get strange?" "Sure, I'm usually done early anyways. So what's his name?" Naruto said, gathering his belongings. Naruto knew this would be a strange meeting the moment she mentioned the name. Dr. Hugo Strange, he's waiting for you in room 36. Hugo Strange's office was an odd mix of art that looked freaky and kid-friendly. Parts of the room were covered with posters of cats hanging from trees and books with large puppies inside, while the remainder was lined with statues of hideous animals and paintings that were nothing more than blots of what appeared to be blood. Naruto chose to make the most of his time alone while waiting for Dr. Strange because this was all he had to process. Naruto started observing his surroundings in an attempt to find out more about the man. He has kids' books and stuff, so he's trying to do good here, but there's the weird pictures and creepy things too, like he wants to show he's not supposed to be here. At least I think, he said, acknowledging that he couldn't do it as well as his father did, but he might be able to get something. You were close on the artwork. I still have meetings here, and I need to show that I'm a professional. There are many adults who would never have gotten that. Would you mind telling me how someone as young as yourself did that? Dr. Strange said, suddenly emerging from behind Naruto. Naruto watched the man closely. He wore a lab coat over a black shirt and matching pants, had a goatee, was bald, and wore round sunglasses. He certainly appeared to be a doctor. My dad has me getting a lot of interesting hobbies. He also likes me to have an expansive vocabulary. I think that means I should use a lot of big words, but it's hard when I'm only okay with English. Strange rubbed his chin thoughtfully and said, "You seem to have a very good grasp on it. You're remarkably smart for a boy of just 8. Not genius level, but intelligent to be sure." Naruto said, Thanks, feeling both gratified and insulted. "So, what did you want to see me about?" he asked. Strange spoke almost flawless Japanese, saying, "Oh, I just have a few routine questions, that's all." "Am I correct in assuming that you'd feel more comfortable if we spoke in your native language?" Strange asked. Even though that small gesture really confused Naruto, he still replied in Japanese, "Sure, we can speak like that if you want. I guess I speak a weird version of it, but I think we can do okay." "Excellent. Let me get a few more papers and then we may begin," Strange said, pulling out a ring of keys and approaching the filing cabinet. Naruto remarked, "If you say so," as he picked up the papers. After unlocking the cabinet drawers with 2 of the keys, he took out a stack of papers. He then proceeded to a box hidden in the room's corner and took a key from his pocket. He opened the box once more and took out a few more documents. The papers were thrown onto the desk by Strange, who said, "I know this seems like a lot, but most of it's already filled out. It shouldn't take any more than 10 minutes. I'm a world-renowned psychiatrist." Without thinking, Naruto questioned, "Then how come you work at an elementary school?" The question almost caused Strange to topple over in his chair. "I had to take a 5-year break of sorts. It set my career back more than a bit." Adults asking him that was embarrassing enough. The question that remained for Naruto was, "Why did you need to take a 5-year break?" "You know, I do believe that I was the one who needed to interview you," Strange said, attempting to cut off Naruto's questioning. "I forgot one thing. Would you please let me go and grab something for a moment?" Strange asked. It was obvious to anyone that Naruto had slightly irritated Strange. The man walked out of the room as fast as he could. Nevertheless, Naruto had essentially asked him to do that. The boy sprinted as fast as he could to the box in the room's corner. Why is the key for this one separate from all the others? He was really weird about his past stuff too. "I think I need to see what's in here." He had been bothered by something about it. As Dick had instructed, Naruto swiftly started to play with the lock after taking 2 pins out of his pocket. He picked it in a matter of seconds because it wasn't a difficult one. Naruto was able to see what secrets were inside when it clicked open. Even though they were merely papers, there was something strange about them. These documents didn't look like official school documents. A student's name was written at the top of each one, followed by a number of notes. The larger words were difficult for Naruto to sound out. "Seems to have a good home life. Lots of close family. Seems to have faith in humanity. Not a good choice for the program. Let the school do as they wish with him," he read. Although he was unsure of the intended meaning, he was aware that the school most likely did not want him to do this. He hurried back to his chair as soon as he heard footsteps approaching the door. As far as Naruto could tell, there were no cameras in the room, and he had closed the box, so perhaps Strange wouldn't notice. As he entered, the doctor placed a Coke and some M&Ms in front of Naruto and said, "Here we are. A little something nice to keep you silent until I ask you a question. I do hope that didn't come off as rude. Keep giving me the good stuff, and you can say anything you want. What did you want to know?" Was Naruto's attempt to act normal while concentrating on the candy, which of course came across as impolite. "Oh, just a little bit about your relationship with your father and friends, that's all," Strange said, but he seemed troubled by something. "You know, I didn't expect the junk food to work. You seemed a little too mature for that earlier. It's pop and candy. What kid doesn't love that?" Naruto realized that he might have attempted to act too natural, but he had to give it his all if he wanted it to work now. Strange appeared to buy it as he watched Naruto open the pop, saying, "I suppose that you're right. Now, let us begin." Strange said it would only take 10 minutes, but it took more than 20. There were a few very easy questions. He inquired about Naruto's favorite television series, how often he went out to eat, how much he read, and other details. Other inquiries, such as what sort of dreams he had, how frequently he slept, and whether he was making lots of friends here, seemed more telling. Naruto returned to class after finishing and carried on with his day as usual. He didn't tell anyone what had happened until he got home that afternoon. "I'm not sure if I approve of you breaking into his things without my permission, but what you found is unnerving." His story clearly unsettled Bruce and Dick, who stated that, based on the way everything was worded, he didn't intend to turn those papers into the school. With this, Naruto knew his father would succeed. "Yeah, and the whole thing with him disappearing for 5 years. What's that about?" Naruto asked. Dick had a few words to say. "I've heard about this guy before. He was all set to become the head of Arkham and was going to be a big shot around here, then out of nowhere he was just gone. Most people figured that he was dead or something. That was before I became the Batman, but I have heard some rumors about the guy from a couple of my sources, Bruce stated, as he began to wonder how deep it went. There's been some claims that Strange was actually using Arkham as a way to funnel criminals back to their mob bosses. They said that he just shuffled papers and then turned the crazies loose. In exchange, he'd get funding for his research. I always figured they were just rumors, but I suppose in this case they hold water. Alright, so are we going to sneak into his office and get those papers? Asked Naruto, curious about their next move. Bruce's strategies were a bit different. Nope, I'm going to sneak in there, while you and Dick stay here. This isn't going to be a complicated endeavor. I'm going to get in, get the papers, and get out. It's best just to keep this one simple. Oh come on, I haven't gotten to go on a mission in almost a week, Dick said. Can't I just tag along? Bruce had already taken out his suit. Nope, this one's on me. Don't worry Dick, with the election being less than a month away, things are only going to get more busy from here on out. If I were you, I'd be enjoying the quiet. Easy for you to say, when you're having all the fun. So bro, what are you gonna do? Asked Bruce as he hopped into the Batmobile, leaving Naruto and an irate Dick in their wake. Dick shrugged and said, I suppose you should go see if Barbara wants to hang out. How about you? Naruto didn't have much to think about. I might go and see if Alfred wants to watch a movie or something. Maybe I'll play a video game, I don't freaking know. Let's hope that Dad doesn't take long. I don't think a man in funny suit getting caught breaking into a school would end too well. Batman found that getting the school was a pleasant change of pace after breaking into the most secure establishments in history. It literally took him less than 5 minutes to reach the correct room. He essentially only needed to flick his wrist to break into the box Naruto had previously mentioned, making it even simpler. The enjoyable portion of Batman's evening came to an end there. These kids are being profiled for an experiment. He's trying to find ones that have poor home lives so that they'd be easy to manipulate. He understood exactly what Hugo Strange was up to after reading just 3 documents. It doesn't specifically say what the experiment is though. Maybe if I look over a few more, he said. Oh, now I'm afraid there's just no way that I can let you do that, Hugo Strange said, again appearing out of nowhere. You know far too much as it is. I must say though, I'm so excited to have you here. Simply put, you're my absolute favorite obsession as of late. I find you simply fascinating. As Batman put it, you could say that the feeling is mutual, Dr. Strange. I'm very interested in finding out what this research is all about. Batman wasn't exactly flattered. Wondering what to say next, Strange pushed up his glasses and said, I'm tempted to give it to you simply to see what you may do with it. However, I still have a commitment to my employer. I'll only ask you to leave once before I force you out of here. Batman half scoffed, half asked, You do realize who you're talking to? Before he asked. It was primarily an intimidation tactic, so he wasn't being arrogant. Strange said, I may not look it at first glance, but I've always done my best to keep myself at top physical condition. While I don't have your gadgets, I feel confident that I can give you quite the hand-to-hand fight. He took off his lab coat to reveal a pair of cannon-like arms. Batman witnessed Strange's leg shoot up like a bullet, and the attack probably would have been successful if it had been almost anyone else. Strange was in excruciating pain as the Dark Knight grabbed the leg and slammed his elbow down on it. To his credit, the man only flinched at the assault. He then attempted to jab Batman in the throat, but Batman ducked and gave Strange a forceful headbutt. Batman was able to place a boot on his chest after the man collapsed at his opponent's feet. As you were saying about your combat skills? Batman asked. You are far more powerful than I imagined, said Strange. You just keep getting more and more fascinating. Batman wished this man would stop talking. There was something unsettling about this man, and Batman was afraid to find out what it was. Save your talking for when we get to the police precinct. Once we get there, I'll listen to everything you've got to say. Whether you want to say it or not. Nevertheless, something was happening here that needed to be explained. Crane asked his assistant, Garfield Linz, captured. How exactly did Dr. Strange manage to get himself captured? Linz made an effort to clarify. Apparently Batman discovered that he was profiling students for an experiment and put a stop to it. A little more digging, and the police were able to find a couple of crimes to charge him with. Stuff he'd done years ago, but were still able to prove. So, do you have any idea if the police know of his relationship to us? It's bad enough that we won't have him retrieving students for us anymore, if things get any worse, Crane said, clearly not in the mood for another setback. Linz reassured him, Oh no sir, There's no need to worry about that, and took a note out of his pocket. He actually sent this to me today. You aren't gonna believe this shit. Crane picked up the note and started reading. Oh Strange, you really will stop at nothing to complete this little mission of yours, won't you? He said, laughing instead of scowling. Linz was confused. What the hell are you so happy about? The note says that he got captured on purpose. I mean sure, he promised not to tell anything about you, but why the heck would he purposely get himself captured? Because it gets him closer to the Batman, Crane stated simply. He thinks it's his destiny to discover the identity of the man. Finding out who the Dark Knight is was a great idea, according to Linz, who said, is he close? I'd love to fry that son of a bitch for what he did to me. He was alluding to Batman putting an end to his burning rampage in Gotham's slums. Linz was known outside the asylum as Firefly, the infamous pyromaniac. After earning a degree in pyrotechnic engineering, he started attempting to burn the city to the ground while wearing a fireproof suit and a specially made high-intensity flamethrower that he had made himself. Batman quickly put him in the asylum after he started, so he didn't have time to do this. Fortunately, Crane had consented to release him on the condition that he comply with all of his demands without question. Both of them had benefited from it. Linz needed to be able to witness the world being destroyed, and Krantz wanted someone who would never defy him. Crane began, giving his assistant some hope. Well, you might get to do just that, since he says that the way he got himself caught proves who believes Batman is. We'll just have to wait and see, Crane said. Are you sure he won't tell anyone about you? I mean, if he spilled his guts to the Batman, Linz asked, still fearing what might occur if Strange folded. He won't tell Batman a thing, Crane assuredly stated. Strange, one of the best psychiatrists I've ever seen, and has one of the few minds that I've never been able to get into. It's perfectly safe, which allows us to move on to our next order of business. Although Linz rarely cared about Crane's business, she had little choice. All right, what dumb nonsense do you want me to do this time? Well, I suppose I could hand this job off to someone else if you'd like, Crane said, laughing at how foolish he was. I have many people who are capable of burning down. Are you burned? As in fire, the all-consuming absolution? Before Crane could finish his sentence, Linz screamed. Crane handed Lynn a file from his desk and said, I thought you might be interested. Harvey Dent, the recently appointed DA, is assembling evidence against Rupert Thorne. I can't allow him to be scrutinized as a campaign supporter. On the day of the trial, I want you to burn down the DA's office so they have to postpone. Thorne will have a discussion with the prosecution's key witness while they hose down the building. The entire thing collapses in an instant. Linz began looking through the file. Sure, DA's office, I'll take it out, not caring why, he just wanted to burn down the building. All I'll require is. No need to tell me what you require, you'll find it all in your old apartment, Crane said, adding the cherry to his scheme. On the day of the trial, you'll escape the asylum, do everything that I've just asked of you, likely get defeated by the Batman, and then return to the asylum. The notion that he would lose bothered Linz, who asked, what if I kill the Batman? What do we do then? Well, then I think criminals will be far too busy dancing in the streets to do much of anything, Crane said, pausing for a moment to reflect before letting a laugh escape his throat. Return to your cell now. You have a performance scheduled for tomorrow. Interestingly, Hugo Strange was once again alone with the only man in Gotham he truly cared about, and this time he was the one being interviewed in an integration room instead of the one conducting the integration. You know, I've played this scenario in my head what seems like hundreds of different ways, and they all end the same way, he said. Standing triumphantly, I'm demonstrating my superiority to the legendary Batman. This coming from a man who just got beat more easily than a couple of eggs, Batman said, glaring at him from across the table. Strange crossed his legs and remarked, that would be a fair point if it weren't for the fact that I intentionally had myself captured. Batman wasn't sure what he was talking about when he said, if you're saying you let me win that fight, I'd be happy to give you a rematch right here and now. He hadn't been explicit enough, Strange could see. I was really talking the way you realized what I was doing, he said. You see, I made sure to tell your son that I had left him at the academy so that he would rush home and tell you about everything I had done. My son? If you're referring to Robin and the Red Fox, they're not my sons, just my partners, and they tipped me off to nothing, Batman repeated, beginning to feel a little uneasy about the direction this was taking. Commissioner Gordon received a call that led me to learn about your activities. Strange, obviously not buying it, snorted, oh, please, Dark Knight, you're lying from the bottom of your heart. I've been profiling you for more than a year, and I'm positive I've uncovered your true self. Naturally, I needed a means of demonstrating it to other people. I therefore set up a small test. Batman began to mentally prepare a strategy for the next few minutes as he noticed that he was perspiring. What test, Strange? These little games of yours are getting to me. Strange stood up dignifiedly and said, okay, if that's what you want, then I'll stop beating around the bush. I was able to quickly determine who you were after creating a psychological profile for you. What's even more convincing is that you have adopted children. I made a test for your youngest son to demonstrate that you are who I believe you to be. Batman was astounded by how near the truth this man was. And how did this so-called test prove anything? Batman asked. Strange needed this to be special, so he kept his cool even though he wanted to yell the man's name at the top of his lungs. Your son found something in my office that led to my current situation. Naturally, he rushed to you and told you everything. I can now show you exactly who you are, thanks to that little brat. Strange must be talking about Naruto, who had discovered the doctor in the first place, and it appeared that he could prove that Bruce was Batman. There was only one way to avoid all of this, but Batman would have to do his next part flawlessly to do it. If he was even slightly off, Strange would know. It was all or nothing. Batman tensed every muscle in his body. Dr. Strange was shocked when Batman burst out laughing, saying, "Oh, it takes a lot to make me chuckle, Doctor, but you seem to have done it. I mean, you believe that I might be Bruce Wayne, of all people. Isn't that who thinks I am? Bruce Wayne?" Strange didn't know what he was now if he had previously been shocked. But what? Batman had him exactly where he wanted him to be. I'm obviously correct. Since Naruto Uzumaki Wayne was the one who realized something was amiss, I'm going to assume that you had this thought. No, this isn't possible. How are you handling this? Strange continued to babble. Once more, the tables were being turned entirely on his head. Allow me to show you something, Dr. Strange, Batman said, deciding to end it because he could see the end of the tunnel. Please bring in the records, Commissioner Gordon. Gordon, who had a few papers in his hand, heard him and hurried inside, saying, "Here you go. I take it that you were referring to the call logs?" "You're right," Batman remarked as he flipped through the documents, "and this is where your theory breaks down, Dr. Strange. Take a look at this page." Strange's expression only grew worse as he hesitantly took that paper and started reading where Batman had instructed him to. "No, this can't be. It's a ruse. Wayne, you're deceiving me. I know it's you." Strange had noticed that Wayne Manor had called the police station, and Batman had called the precinct while his father was on his way to school. He occasionally did this to avoid situations like this, and by having the Waynes call in crimes, he confused people because, of all people, no one would expect the Dark Knight to call someone else to solve a crime. Batman said, "No, Strange, I'm not Bruce Wayne, after winning this round. To be honest, it's sad how much you're holding on to this. Even more depressing is the fact that you believe a billionaire playboy with a huge business to manage can still find time to play superhero at night. What do you know? It's unbelievable that I even wasted time on you." Strange's head was spinning as Batman stood up and started to walk to the door with Gordon. "No, don't you dare leave. This isn't taking place. Bruce Wayne is you. Can you hear me? Bruce Wayne is you?" The madman had done some damage, but Batman knew he could undo it all, so his voice grew quieter as they left the room and left him to his ramblings. That was the closest anyone had ever come to identifying him, and hopefully no one would ever get close. Bruce's only thought after a long night of fighting a mad psychiatrist was to sleep, but unfortunately, men like him didn't just get to sleep. His sleep was more like meditation. He had learned a technique during his training around the world that allowed him to get 2 hours of sleep and make it feel like he'd gotten 4 times that. It was a very dangerous method that, more or less, forced a person to shut off their mind completely, more so than sleep ever could, but if you didn't know how to wake yourself up, you could end up sleeping for days and starve to death. Bruce had mastered this technique, so for him, there was no risk to it. It was the only way he'd managed to avoid dying from sleep deprivation over the years. He was utterly hungry when he woke up the morning after his run-in with Dr. Strange, and he hoped Alfred had finished preparing breakfast because he felt the need to eat immediately. As he descended the stairs and entered the kitchen, he heard a voice that was unfamiliar to him, which made Bruce a little uneasy, so he sped up. The people appeared to be speaking Japanese, which made him feel both more and less uneasy, as odd as that sounded. "After a few months of residing here, is there anything about the hidden leaf that you truly miss?" the voice politely asked him. Naruto replied, "I can call the old man at least, but I miss him a lot," and Bruce came into the kitchen. "The ramen they made at the Ichiraku stand is something I miss a lot. Nothing compares to Ichiraku's ramen, even though Alfred makes some decent ones too." Alfred bowed briefly and said, "Thank you, Master Naruto. I just try to do my best. Bruce complimented them, saying, well, your best is far better than most people's, as they began to observe their new visitor, a man with a scar across his nose and across his face, brown hair tied in a short ponytail, and an average build and weight. Despite his unimpressive appearance, Bruce knew better than to underestimate him. Naruto began shouting in Japanese, Dad, you're awake. Before Bruce could introduce himself to the man. Take a look, we have a new visitor from the Hidden Leaf. He teaches at the Ninja Academy and goes by Iruka. His purpose in being here is to ensure that I am learning all of my ninja skills. Hello, Mr. Wayne, Iruka said, laughing at the boy and extending his hand for Bruce to shake. All of what Naruto just stated is absolutely accurate. This is the second portion of his checkup. In the event that the leaf needs him, we must ensure that he is robust. Bruce remarked, that's right, I guess I'd forgotten about the next part, since he had been so busy that he had completely forgotten about it. That would also explain why Naruto is home on a Tuesday morning. I guess it will be pleasant to demonstrate his abilities. He was almost in Iruka's class before the whole Gotham situation, so he was very interested in how far Naruto had come. Iruka agreed, saying, if what I've heard about him so far is true, I'm pretty excited to see it myself. Inoichi had nothing but positive things to say about Naruto as he got off a plane as I was boarding it. I'm not surprised at all to hear that, Bruce said, pleased to see that he was correct about Inoichi. However, can we keep this brief? We are expected to go to court today to support a friend of mine. In court? Do you have a friend on trial or something? Iruka inquired in disbelief. Bruce quickly changed his statement, saying, no, not in that manner. The prosecutor is my longtime friend Harvey Dent. I want to make sure we're down there to support him because this is the biggest case of the year. Dad talks about Harvey like all the time, so it's cool I finally get to meet him, said Naruto, who appeared to be very excited for it. The test shouldn't take too long, Iruka said, seemingly endorsing this version of events. Well that's very good then, she said. All I'm doing is administering a genin test to him. He's not likely to pass, but I want to make sure he's as good as the other genin I'm currently training. Does that sound good? Well, after breakfast we'll all head over to the gym in the manor to do all that, Bruce said, confident that they could manage that. Prior to doing anything else, I will need to eat. Will you mind if we leave you here while we head to the trail, Iruka? Iruka had different plans, saying, well, how about I go with you? It would be interesting to watch a trial since I have never seen one here. Bruce said, I don't see why not, and Alfred placed a big plate of eggs and bacon in front of him. Let's eat so that we can get started, Bruce said. You must demonstrate to Iruka how tough we have made you here, so get ready, Naruto. Now was Naruto's moment to show off his newfound ability as a badass ninja, and he immediately went to his foxy grin and scarfed down his breakfast. They all went to the gym for Naruto's big test, and he stood in the middle of the room with Iruka in front of him, ready to give him the test. Bruce had woken Dick up because he knew he would want to see his brother's test, and then Barbara came in early so she could go to the trial with them and decided she wanted to watch the test as well. With everyone watching, including Alfred, Naruto was under a lot of pressure, and he didn't intend to let them down. All right, Naruto, are you prepared for this first part? Iruka asked, pulling out his sheet to record his findings. I was born ready, Naruto said, assuming a battle stance. Have faith. Iruka said, great, then we'll start with taijutsu, and he placed the paper in his pocket before assuming his own fighting stance and saying, you have to hit me 3 times in 2 minutes. Although I won't be going all out, you shouldn't either. I want to see your full range of abilities. With his fist clenched, Naruto lunged at him, swung at Iruka's head, who arched his back to avoid it, and kicked back. It was a near miss, but Naruto sidestepped the blow, and the next thing Iruka knew, Naruto was attempting to knee him in the leg. Dick applauded his brother from the sidelines, saying, nicely done, Naruto, but you've got 2 more to go. Iruka took the attack squarely in the shin. Just before Iruka tried to hit him in the chest, Naruto gave his brother a quick thumbs up. He had less than a millisecond to spare before he smacked Iruka's hand away. Once he was safe, Naruto attempted to bury his fist in Iruka's stomach, but Iruka ducked it and chose to aim for his shoulder instead. This time, Naruto allowed the blow to land, but it was for strategic reasons, and while Iruka was busy trying to hit him, he clenched his fist as tightly as he could and struck his instructor on the side. Yes, you do it that way. Barbara, whose Japanese was the worst of all, shouted and leapt into the air, saying, Naruto, you've got this. Just 1 more to go. That's good, but stay focused. Dick began cheering louder than before, and Bruce and Alfred both grinned at one another. Now is not the time to become overconfident. It was a good thing that Naruto had a plan to do just that because he was too busy figuring out his next move to notice the cheering. He had his final move all figured out in his head, but he had needed time to make sure Iruka did everything just right to make it work. Naruto launched an attack on Iruka's legs, which were essentially defenseless at the moment, and although it was a good move, Iruka couldn't allow himself to be caught that easily. He ran towards Iruka and swept for his legs, and the man jumped over it as if it were nothing, but he saw something as he was coming down. A moment later, he performed a backflip to avoid the hit. Iruka said, "Not bad, but I'm not going to be tricked that easily," as he landed and slid backwards. It was now or never. Naruto frowned, knowing that he only had 30 seconds left. Iruka noticed his opponent's eye shift and knew that things had become more intense. Naruto suddenly charged at Iruka, swinging and kicking at him like a crazy man. The older man suddenly found it much harder to block, and everyone on the side watched with great interest as Iruka repelled the insane Naruto. This continued until there were only 5 seconds left in the test, at which point it finally happened. Naruto had passed this portion of the test when Iruka took a step back just a bit too far, allowing Naruto to land a quick blow on his knee that was not nearly long enough to cause any real pain but still counted as one of the 3 hits. "Will you take a peek at that? There are some kids 4 years older than you who can't do that," Iruka said, completely unprepared for this. "You actually did it. There's no way that you can fail when you have a teacher like him," Naruto said with a proud smile, pointing to his father. Hearing his son say that about him made Bruce proud, and he approached the boy and placed a hand on his shoulder, saying, "Thank you, Naruto. You did a great job. I never had the slightest doubt about you." With a nice tone, Alfred remarked, "Naruto, great job, but I do have a few notes for later." Iruka swiftly reminded them, he gave an impressive performance, but there's still 2 more physical parts to the test, and then a written portion, so there was no time for the other people to congratulate him. Naruto was eager to do them immediately, asking, "What are they?" "Right now, I can do all of them, I promise." Iruka remarked, "I highly doubt that, but let's try it anyhow. The accuracy test comes next in the test. You must hit the target 8 times with each set of 10 kunai and 10 shuriken that I give you." Dick said, "Will that work, or do you need something bigger, smaller?" pointing to a bullseye on the wall. Iruka turned to face him and said, "That one seems fairly typical. I can say whether it's good or not, even though it might be a bit larger than the one at home. We'll start once I get the weapons out." "Just move quickly, I've got this one under control," Naruto declared with assurance. "I never fail at things like this." Iruka gave Naruto a bundle containing the shuriken and kunai, saying, "Naruto, you don't have to move quickly. Take your time and..." Before he could finish, Naruto snatched up the bundle and began tossing the projectiles, and everyone in the room watched as the weapons flew from the young boy's hand and headed straight for the target. All of them hit the target, and while they weren't all bullseyes, they were more than enough for Iruka. "What the devil are you doing teaching him that?" More shocked than he had been in a long time, Iruka whispered to Bruce. They had to proceed to the next test, and Bruce simply nodded his son in agreement and smiled a little. "So, what's the last part before the written section?" Even though Iruka was still in shock, she was able to respond, "Next is ninjutsu. Naruto must transform, create a clone, and employ the substitute jutsu." "Like that'll be a problem," Barbara remarked cynically. "For the past week, he and Dick have been pulling practical jokes on people using that transformation thing." As his girlfriend smiled, Dick said, "What? It's a big brother's duty to enjoy himself with his brother, isn't it?" Barbara kissed him on the cheek and shook her head, saying, "I'll just take your word for it." Iruka simply ignored the last bit, which was primarily in English, and turned to Naruto, saying, "Well, could you perform those 3 jutsus for me?" Instead of responding, Naruto simply showed him. He made a hand seal, and 2 clones materialized beside him. One of them changed into what appeared to be a carbon copy of Iruka, while the other one abruptly vanished and was replaced by a weight across the room. The Iruka clones waved as the Naruto clones stood where the weight had been. Naruto said at this point, "So, how was that?" "That's perfect," Iruka said, blinking and scratching the back of his head. "That means that all 3 test sections were completed with nearly flawless scores. I don't think you can fail this unless you fumble the written part." About that, Alfred began, asking a pertinent question. Given his limited knowledge of Konoha's past, how is Naruto expected to pass the written portion? He didn't know about any of it. Iruka had already considered that. The remainder of it consists of math and common sense problems, and some of it he probably learned during his 8 years in the Leaf. I believe he will be able to succeed if he has been attending classes here. Naruto had no concerns about the written section because he had already made up his mind that he would pass this test regardless of the outcome. I don't think I can do it. I know that I can do it. Iruka-sensei, give me that tests. Iruka-sensei. Iruka asked himself again, why are you calling me that now? Because that's what I'd call you back home, I guess, the boy said, not understanding why he would call him anything else. They proceeded to the next task after Iruka appeared satisfied with the response. I suppose if it works for you, it works for me. You can take this test here or anywhere else if you'd like. All I need to do is keep an eye on you to make sure you're not cheating. Are you cheating? I don't need to cheat for this, Naruto sneered at the phrase. I'm capable of doing it alone. He snatched up the test and a pencil and hurried to the other end of the room, where he soon began to scribble on his paper with great concentration, while the others, with nothing better to do, just started chatting among themselves. So you and your partner had to infiltrate this Red Claw woman's hideout all by yourselves? Iruka asked Alfred in Japanese as they discussed the older man's military days, specifically a case he had had some 20 years prior. Did you guys have no backup at all? Alfred clarified, oh no, backup would have attracted far too much attention. We had to be extremely covert. We left as soon as we had the information we required and didn't bring it up again. Only last year was this information declassified. Memories, These old knees had a lot of movement back then. God, a part of me longs for those times. Bruce decided it was time to discuss their relationship with Dick and Barbara while they were reminiscing, saying in English, Dick, Barb, I think there's a couple of things that I need to say about the two of dating. I should have said something that evening when I first learned. Bruce, before you say anything you need to know that we understand how risky this could be, Barbara said, feeling very uneasy about the situation. Dick began to say, yeah, but we really like each other, but Bruce stopped him with a raised hand. I'm not trying to reprimand you, I'm trying to apologize for how I acted, they said, obviously misjudging the direction of the conversation. It wasn't right that I was so harsh on you two. Wait, are you saying that you were in the wrong this time? Dick was hearing something he couldn't believe. In this instance, yes, Bruce replied, but he quickly clarified, but just remember that's a very uncommon occurrence. As I get older, I try to impart my experience to you. On the other hand, it also results in more scarring. I cannot allow you two to be impacted by the hurt I experienced in the past. It doesn't follow that things won't work out with you just because they didn't work out with me and her. I'm behind you both in whatever you decide to do. Despite being shocked by this, Barbara and Dick were much more appreciative, saying, thanks, Bruce. You don't know how much hearing you say that means to Dick and me. Bruce gave them a nod, but he was still terrified of how it might turn out, too. He wished for the best but didn't know what to anticipate, and he didn't have much time to think before Naruto began shouting, in Japanese, I'm done. I've finished everything. As it hadn't been long, Iruka said, already, adding, but it's only been about 15 minutes since you started. Naruto approached him and handed him the paper, saying, I skipped some of the things because I didn't know about them. I know that I passed, though. I'll be the judge of that, Iruka said, beginning to review the boy's responses, murmuring as he went, well, let's see. Yes, exactly. Well, I'll give it to you. While others waited around, he continued to mentally add up everything, and after what seemed like an hour, he finally said, it was close, but he did it. This is sufficient for a passing grade. With a triumphant pump of his fist, Naruto exclaimed, oh yeah. What did I say to you all? This is the greatest ninja ever. Bruce remarked, that's fantastic Naruto, but he knew he needed to let his son down a little because it was only the beginning. Even though you've made great progress, you still have a long way to go. Dick held a different opinion. He recently passed an exam that most 12-year-olds take when they're 8 years old. I think that's pretty awesome. Iruka didn't see it every day, saying, it hasn't been done in a long time. Actually, the last time was during the Great Ninja War, and the standards were lower back then. The council will be extremely happy, I can already say that. Well, guys, Barbara said, we're going to be late for the trail if you don't leave now. I don't want to ruin the mood. Dang it, we're going to have to drive like madmen just to get decent seats, Bruce said, quickly realizing how correct she was. Before Harvey kills me, we'd better start. He needs all the help he can get if he is going to put Thorne away at last. As if things couldn't get any worse, Harvey's father even tortured him psychologically by using a coin flip to decide whether or not he would beat the boy, giving him some hope that he would be lucky. The twisted part that Harvey would only learn later was that it was a double-sided coin, meaning that Harvey would get the beating regardless of which side it landed on. Many people believed that Gotham was a place of second chances, where someone could overcome everything, and few people in Gotham had overcome more than Harvey Dent. He almost lost his mind when he discovered the coin after his father passed away from liver failure. His best friend Bruce Wayne was the only thing that kept him sane, and with his friend's support, he decided it was time to go it alone. Harvey kept the coin and repressed his anger toward his father, refusing to let him ruin his life. He completed school, passed the bar to become a lawyer, and eventually rose to the position of Gotham City District Attorney. The only issue was that he had repressed a lot of anger over the years it took to accomplish all of that, and that anger had to go somewhere. Where had all of that anger gone? Harvey was starting to discover, whether he liked it or not. That wasn't his biggest issue right now. He was just a few minutes away from the trial of his life and needed someone to help him relax. His assistants had tried, but they simply didn't know how to approach Harvey. Harvey needed a friend who could keep him sane, and he was far from that right now. I've been trying to get this for 6 years, and it all comes down to this moment, he said, walking nervously down the hallway outside the courtroom. There isn't any pressure here, you know. When Harvey heard the voice, he sighed with relief. Well, I'd say that there's a little pressure, Bruce said. But at least you've got a beautiful fiancée to go home to if you lose. Even though Harvey didn't yet know Naruto and Iruka, he turned to see Bruce and the rest of the gang had arrived. I'll admit, knowing that Grace is at home makes things a little easier, Harvey said. Bruce, it's nice to see you again. Does this blonde here have the new son you've been talking about so much? Bruce said to his son, Harvey, this is Naruto Uzumaki Wayne, the newest member of my family. Originally from Japan, he has been learning English. The man beside him is Iruka, a guest from Naruto's former residence. Since he doesn't speak English, don't worry too much about him. This is Harvey Dent, one of my closest friends from my school days, Naruto. Harvey said, I'm happy to see so many people here today, and it's good to see you three as well, referring to Alfred, Dick, and Barbara. It's nice to meet you, Naruto. I believe it could help me stay composed today. When Naruto heard the name Grace, he simply said, You mentioned that Grace is your fiancée copyright. What does that signify? Is she present? Fiancée copyright means that I'm going to marry her, and she was too nervous to come today, Harvey said, recognizing the child's intelligence. She made the decision to wait in the office and check for anything I might need while she was there. I don't know how she could get any better as she's a wonderful secretary and wife. Bruce said, Hey you guys, go find us some seats. I'm happy for ya Harv. I have some important questions for Harvey. Harvey didn't have to ask what they were going to talk about because they had been discussing it for the past month. I hate to say it, but my problems have been getting worse. Alfred took that as his cue and led the others inside. I almost lost it with Grace last night. I might end up going crazy out there if I'm not careful. I'm sorry to hear that. Is the psychiatrist sure about the test? I mean, how can some form a second personality like that? Bruce said, clearly feeling sorry for his friend. The woman explained it to me, Harvey stated with a worried expression on his face. She said that all the anger I pushed down after my father died has started to bubble back up. I won't let it out, but according to her I need to. So, I eventually created another personality in my head. It's been coming out so much lately that it's starting to scare me. I can't remember what I did when it happens, but the way my psychiatrist described it. It sounds just like my father. I'm going to scare her, Bruce. I know that I'm going to scare Grace. She can't ever fear me, not like I feared my father. That's why I loved her, because she's just so brave. Even knowing how dangerous it'd be being the wife of a DA, she still said yes. Lord, she's so damn brave. He understood the agony that this must have caused him. You're not your father Harvey, and you never will be. If you think that you're anything like him, you're insane. Don't let your past stop what's been your dream since the moment you became a lawyer. I know that you can end Thorne's chokehold on Gotham, if you just get it there. You've got more faith in me than I have in myself, but maybe that's a good thing. Let's get in there so that you can get a front row seat of me kicking Thorne's ass. Harvey knew having Bruce here would be beneficial. A police officer ran up to him, panting, and the two men were startled when a voice exclaimed, Mr. Dent. Mr. Dent. The DA's office is on fire. Some nut in a freaky suit lit it up. But Grace is still in there. I need to get to her now. Everyone, get out of my way, Harvey said, his eyes wide with horror. Harvey started running toward the door before Bruce could take any action. He was aware that it couldn't be a coincidence that all of this was taking place during Thorne's trail. Thorne, you are going to pay for this. One way or another, you're going to end up in a cell when this day is over, the Bat family said, signaling that it was time to take action. The DA's office was rising in smoke, and the heat was felt almost a mile from the flames. As fire sprayed from its nozzle, Firefly gripped his flamethrower tightly. As he worked, he laughed with his peers, saying, "Haha, burn baby, burn, oh, look at it go." Harvey was within a block of the burning building a few minutes after he began running. "Please let her by okay, please let her be okay." He sped up, determined to reach Grace before it was too late. Harvey didn't care about the building, even though it was obvious that it would be reduced to ash when it was all over. All he wanted to do was make sure Grace was all right. He was unaware that the Bat family was leaping from building to building behind him. In order for the others to go and catch up with Harvey, Alfred had taken Haruka home. The severity of the fire was becoming quite evident to them. The Red Fox exclaimed, "Man, I never seen one that big before," alluding to the burning building. "How long until it falls down?" he asked. Batman said, "At most, 15 minutes. You three go and try to get everyone out. Your suits will protect you from the flames, but only stay in 10 minutes at most. You know what? Make it 8. Batman was unable to know for sure, but he could speculate. The better thought came from Red Fox. "Why don't I send in my clones? That way if does fall, no one gets hurt." "Red Fox, you do that. The rest of us will take care of Firefly." "Get out," Batman said, wondering why he hadn't considered it earlier. "I guess the fact that it's a friend at risk is causing me to lose a little focus." While the others leapt for Firefly, the Red Fox leapt for the building. Red Fox constructed 4 clones for each of the building's 3 floors. While the real one remained outside to observe, they leapt inside. "Sweating from the heat," he said, "please tell me everyone's okay in there. I don't want to see my first dead body today." After a few minutes, one of the clones rushed out the door, carrying a human. The young man was probably a paralegal. He was being protected from the flames by the clone, who said, "There's only one more person." It was a blonde woman in this blue suit. Knowing who it must be, Harvey screamed, "Grace, let me in there, I have to save her." In an attempt to stop him, the Red Fox said, "Sir, I can't let you do that. Just let my clones handle this one." "I'm not leaving this to some little kid, damn it, I'm going to do this," said Harvey, pushing him aside. Disregarding his own safety, he dashed inside. "Hey, what are you?" cried one of the clones inside as there was a tiny explosion. Then they heard someone say, "Give her to me," from inside. The Red Fox could only assume that the blonde woman Harvey was carrying was Grace when he ran out. In addition, the Red Fox saw that half of his face was nearly ruined. Keeping Grace close to him, he placed her on the ground. She was weeping into his shoulder. "Harvey, I was so scared. I don't know what happened. Everything was fine. Then suddenly there was a flames everywhere. Oh Harvey, I kept screaming for you." Harvey raised his head to reveal his face to her. What is it? Why is my face in so much pain?" she exclaimed, alerting Harvey to the problem. Running right next to him, the Red Fox questioned, "Mr. Dent, what happened in there?" "I don't know. When I ran it, something small blew up. It only got my left side, I think." "Oh God, it hurt so much," Harvey said, clutching his face as the pain finally hit him. With so much adrenaline pumping through him, the Red Fox assumed he must not have noticed at first. "This looks really bad. We need to get you to hospital or something," he said. Harvey's primary concern was his fiancée copyrightee, saying, "No, Grace is the one who needs the hospital. We need to make sure she's all right." Pulling away from him, Grace said, "Look at you. My God, it's scary." "Harvey, I'm okay, let's just get you checked out." "Scary?" Harvey asked again, allowing the word to cling to his lips. "You're afraid of me. You can't fear me." She flinched as he reached for her with a burnt hand. Harvey rushed to one of the officers before anything could be done. "Harvey, wait," Grace called after him. The others did their best to extinguish Firefly's fires while all that madness went on. Batman was ready with his batarang, saying, "Stand down Firefly. We don't want to hurt you, but we will if we have to." They had to back off when Firefly sprayed flame at them, saying, "Unless you want to see what you look like deep fried." "Hey, that's my gun," shouted one of the side officers as the others prepared to attack. Ramen was the first to notice that Harvey was approaching them with a gun he had stolen from the police officers, looking deranged and distorted. "You did this to me. Look at Grace, the fear she's feeling." Harvey was too weak, "But I'm not." "You're going to pay," he screamed, his tone completely different from his usual one of anger. Without thinking, Harvey began to shoot at Firefly. He had a big cylinder of flammable gas on his back, which was why the police hadn't been shooting at him. That cylinder was going to explode if one of the bullets struck it, destroying everything in its path. Batman said, "Harvey, don't. You're not thinking straight," in an attempt to stop his friend. The words were ignored. Harvey fired after realizing he was hit by every bullet in the clip. It ended when the cylinder was struck. Everyone in the vicinity of Firefly, including Batgirl and Ramen, was flung into the air when an explosion occurred. Batman was taking in the devastation all around him, his ears ringing. Terrified for his childhood friend, he glanced at him. Harvey could not stop saying the same 4 words. "She's afraid of Maya, she's afraid of me, she's afraid of me." Harvey called to his friend, "Bruce, come on over here. We're at table 6 on your left." Bruce noticed Harvey and a stunning young blonde woman seated at a table to his left. "Hey Harv, it's good to see you. So, this is the woman that you've fallen so hard to you. It's nice to meet you, miss. My name is Bruce Wayne," he said as he approached the table and took a seat. "Hello there Bruce, I'm Grace. It's nice to meet you too. So you're Harvey's rich friend, huh? MMH, money and Q to boot. I almost wish that I'd seen you first," the woman said, smiling sweetly as she shook his hand. Harvey pulled Grace toward him and said, "Haha, what did I tell ya? This woman's really got some guts, eh?" The man was obviously ecstatic. Bruce was extremely happy for his friend. "Waiter, bring us over your best bottle of wine. I've got a beautiful woman to get to know today," he said, calling to their server. He called for a waiter, but he didn't get a look. He simply continued to wander the eatery. "Excuse me, waiter?" Bruce tried once more. The waiter yelled, "Would you shut up?" and spun around. Bruce exclaimed, "I'm trying to cook here," as he noticed that Firefly was using his flamethrower instead of a waiter. More flame erupted from the pyromaniac's weapon. Everybody in the restaurant started screaming and running crazily. Bruce's surroundings started to dissolve until his friend Harvey was the only thing left in front of him. "Harvey, what's going on? Where did everyone go?" Bruce said, reaching for him. Harvey slowly turned around, his face half mangled, and asked, "Why Bruce? Why didn't you save me? I thought that you were my friend." Bruce was overcome by guilt. He started to run because he couldn't stand to see Harvey in this state and he just wanted to get away. He was stopped in his tracks by the appearance of 2 figures in front of him. "Bruce, you failed. You promised that no one else would get hurt. You failed Harvey and you failed us. You're not a hero. You're nothing," said his mother and father, who were covered in blood. Bruce collapsed to his knees as he began to hyperventilate. "No, make it stop. Please make it stop," he cried out, unable to stand it any longer. Naruto screamed, "Dad, wake up," and shook his father in his seat. The boy was frightened because he had started to breathe heavily and perspire. "Huh? What's going?" asked Bruce as he woke up, startled and uncertain of his location. With reference to the hospital waiting room, Naruto said, "We're waiting to see how bad Harvey's burns are. Oh, and you wanted to know if that Firefly guy is gonna live or not." Bruce, who was well aware of the reasons behind his forgetfulness, said, "Right, how could I forget? Has there been any word on them?" Despite his desire to assist his father, Naruto had no new information. "No, none of the doctors have been here. Everyone fell asleep for a while, so I guess something might have changed," he said. Bruce turned to see Alfred dozing beside him. Barbara had collapsed on Dick's shoulder, who was also asleep, a few feet away. Haruka was also present, but he was reading a magazine and was awake. He was intrigued by it for some reason. Bruce noted that it was getting a bit late and said, "You know, you guys can go home if you'd like. I just want to be here when they give us an idea of how Harvey's doing." "No way," adamantly stated Naruto, "because we are a family, and families support one another when one of them is harmed or afraid. You know something, bud? I think that you joining this family is one of the best things that ever happened to it," Bruce said, putting an arm around his son and marveling at his wisdom. "Hello, Mr. Wayne. You're here to see Harvey Dent, right?" Naruto said with a foxy smile just as the doctor finally emerged into the waiting area. Bruce awoke Alfred and said, "That's right," allowing Naruto to awaken Dick and Barbara. Since everything was in English, Haruka couldn't understand and continued to read his magazine. "How bad was the damage?" he asked. The physician glanced at his chart and said as he did so, "Well, we got all of the burned skin off that we could manage, but there's still a lot of complications. It'll take a skin graft to repair the damage, but even then, there'll be scarring. However, that's not the part I'm worried about. The psychological effects is likely going to bigger issue." You mean the stress from being in the building? Barbara asked again, wiping the sleep from her eyes. Psychological damage? The physician continued to examine the chart. Not exactly, give me a moment. Ah, here it is. It appears that Mr. Dent suffers from multiple personality disorder. Something about getting burned like he did seems to have had a strange effect on his problem. At that moment, a wiry man wearing round glasses and a nice suit came into the room. Despite his creepiness, he had a respectable appearance. Bruce appeared to be quite interested in Harvey's situation, knowing it was Jonathan Crane. Ah, Mr. Wayne. You must be here for Harvey. What a good friend you are. I can't help but fear for the man myself. Burning his face like he did could only exacerbate his newly developing personality. Bruce, who had already discovered that his concerns about the man were well-founded, said, "Wait just a second, how did you know about that?" The only people that he told were his closest friends and his doctor. Crane nearly laughed at the request but kept his professional demeanor. His psychiatrist has handed the case over to me. With all of the unique psyches that I see in Arkham Asylum, she felt I would be best suited for the task. I'm going to have a chat with him in just a moment, but I need to see another patient of mine first. Garfield Linz is his true name, but you likely know him as Firefly. I'm curious as to whether he'll survive this or not. Firefly's gonna live, right? Naruto asked the doctor hesitantly, because I don't want Harvey to get in trouble for this. Oh, Mr. Dent shouldn't be in any trouble, Crane replied, putting his glasses back on his nose. He was under extreme emotional distress when he fired the Linz. No jury would convict him. I may tell you more about it later when you're in the interview room with me. When Bruce heard the words, "Wait, you want us in the room with you when you interview him?" he was on the verge of losing his mind. As if it were a given, Crane said, "You're his friend Mr. Wayne, he'll be more comfortable with you in the room. He'll be more likely to trust me." Bruce said, "I still don't know, because he didn't even have faith in the man. Was his friend truly what he wanted?" Crane appeared uninterested in the discussion. "Bruce, you're going to be in there. My methods are unconventional, but they work much better than those other quacks who are so quick to judge me. Now if you'll excuse me, I'm off to see Linz. Be ready once I return." Bruce wanted to slap Crane's head off with his tone of voice, but instead he sat down again. He murmured to himself, "Want me to trust you with my best friend and then you treat me like that? Buddy, you are something else." Naruto could tell his father was under stress and needed some time to himself. "Hey, Iruka-sensei, you want me to tell you how everything's going?" he said as he approached Iruka to update him on the situation. The magazine's pictures were intriguing, but I was unable to read any of the articles. Sure, Iruka said, setting the magazine down. "I guess I am kind of bored." Naruto took a seat beside Iruka and told him the entire story of Harvey and Firefly, including the tidbits about Crane. "All Alfred did was drive me to mansion and then here. How did I miss that much?" Iruka asked, amazed at how much had transpired in such a short time. Naruto also found it a little difficult to accept the statement, "Things happen fast in Gotham, but you get used to it." "You probably should have accompanied me back to the mansion," Iruka said, a little worried for the boy, "but it must have been pretty dangerous being near that Firefly person." "Hey, I wasn't gonna leave my family behind. If you weren't here, I bet Alfred would have come with us," Iruka said, indicating that he was crazy if he believed Naruto would remain at the mansion during all of that. Iruka was genuinely a little depressed because he could see how much Naruto enjoyed living here. "I'm glad you're happy here, but do you ever think that you might want to move back to the Hidden Leaf? It is your home, right?" he asked, demonstrating his unwavering loyalty to the Leaf. Iruka was somewhat discouraged when Naruto responded, "No, not really. But neither is Gotham. My home is wherever my family is. They're the important part." "That's a very mature answer, Naruto. So, do you think that you'll at least want to visit the Leaf?" Iruka asked, finding it hard to believe that a child had given such a response. Naruto had in fact been contemplating that. "Of course I'm gonna visit the Hidden Leaf. I lived there for 8 whole years. Someday I want to go and see the old man and the gang at Ichiraku Ramen. Plus, I've got some new friends in the Hidden Sand, and I want to see what it's like where they live. Dad said that we're going to visit there at least once a year, because it's important to remember where I came from. I know he's super busy, but we'll find a way." "Good, I was worried you held some hard feelings towards your homeland," Iruka said as he leaned back in his seats. Naruto was about to respond when he abruptly stopped, as though an idea had just occurred to him. "You don't hate me, right? You're not just pretending to be my friend because the village said that you had to?" he asked, looking up at the man. Iruka was taken aback by the inquiry. Given that he knew the boy contained a highly demon-like creature, He had undoubtedly been afraid to meet him. Nevertheless, I don't hate you. In fact, you seem like a very nice person. This did not imply that the boy was the monster. When Naruto finally got to his true question, he said, then why does everyone in the Hidden Leaf hate me? And please, don't tell me that you can't tell me. I hate that people keeping say that. Iruka was at a loss for words. Naruto appeared so desperate, but he was unable to tell the boy the truth because it was illegal. What was the man able to say? There's only one answer that I can honestly give you, and you won't like what it is. Why won't someone tell me? I just want to know what I did to them that makes them hate me, Naruto said, wanting to strike something because he was so furious. As Iruka emphasized, you didn't do a damn thing to them, Naruto, and that is the truth. They've got no good reason to hate you. Naruto let out a sigh. Yeah, but I still want to know what that reason is. I think that dad knows, but he won't tell me either. Why won't anyone just tell me? Naruto recognized his father's hand as it landed firmly on his shoulder. Bruce approached the child and said in Japanese, I know that it's not fair of us to keep something like this from you, and believe me, I want to tell you the truth so desperately. You have to understand though, now isn't the right time. Once all of this craziness with Harvey is done, I plan on taking you to the Hidden Leaf. When we're there, then I promise to tell everything that you want to know. Can you live with that? As if his father were deceiving him, Naruto exclaimed, for real? I finally get to know? And I get to visit the leaf too? That's what I'm talking about? Iruka asked, Mr. Wayne, not to be disrespectful, but are you sure that's a good idea? He's still so young. He's more mature than half of the adults I've met in my lifetime. Naruto is more than ready to know about the power he holds. Bruce had enough faith in his son to tell him the truth anyhow. Man, I can't wait till we're done with this stuff so we can go. Naruto missed that last bit, but he was too excited to care. That reminds me, do we really have to sit in with that creepy doctor guy when talks to Harvey? I get a really bad feeling when I'm around him. A bad feeling? Bruce responded, what do you mean, like you just don't like him? In an attempt to articulate his feelings, Naruto shook his head and said, I don't like him, but that's not it. Whenever I'm around him, I get this feeling in my body. It's like, something in me doesn't trust him. Even if I don't know them yet, I can get that feeling about people. That thing needs Naruto alive if he wants to live, so he must warn him when he's around dangerous people. Confident that he knew what was happening, Iruka whispered to Bruce, it's gotta be the Kyuubi. A creature like the Nine Tails can sense when a person has bad intentions. We need to be on high alert when that nut is near Harvey. I don't trust him as much as you do. Well, that could come in handy, Bruce muttered to himself before turning back to Naruto. I'll explain what that is to you when we go to the leaf. For now, just take a little nap before Crane returns. When the tank on Garfield Lynn's back exploded, he burned more than 90% of his body, and he held Harvey Dent responsible for the remaining 1%. He was in pain all the time because of that crazy lawyer. Despite all the burns he had previously received, the sting on his body was the worst he had ever experienced in his life. The doctor believed that he would survive, so once he recovered, he would at least be able to exact his revenge. With a furious expression on his face, he held up his hand and said, I'm going to find you, Dent, and then I'll barbecue the other half of your body. No one's going to be able to recognize you. Opening the door to greet his patient, Crane said, as your psychiatrist, I must say that your anger is extremely unhealthy. However, I don't think that you'll be angry much longer, he said. Linz awkwardly raised his head to welcome the individual. Doc, it's good to see you. Did you hear what the other docs are saying? I've got a 5 in 6 chance of making it through this thing. That pretty good, huh? I'll be working for you in no time at all. Krantz took a seat and opened his briefcase. He quickly discovered the object he was seeking, a syringe filled with a transparent fluid. Maybe, but you're not out of the woods just yet, he said. I'm a fighter, I'll get through it, Linz remarked as she watched Crane flick the syringe in a medical manner. Whatcha got there? Something to numb the pain? Linz asked. With the syringe still in his hand, Crane approached him and said, you could say that, yes. I promise that you feel no pain after this. Ow. Don't you think that you should ask me before you prick me like that? Crane said as he quickly inserted the needle into Lin's arm and gave him an injection of whatever was inside. Crane told him, oh, now I couldn't do something as silly as that, and started to gather his belongings. I highly doubt that you'd let me inject you with something as deadly as what was in that syringe. Deadly? What in the hell have you just put inside of me? Linz exclaimed, disregarding the pain he was experiencing. Crane grabbed his briefcase and prepared to leave. Just a fast-acting toxin that won't show up on an autopsy. It'll appear you died from your injuries. You know far too much about my operation, and now the police will surely be questioning you, along with the Batman. I know that you'll spill your guts once he enters the room, and there's just no way I can let you tell him about my little escapades as the Scarecrow. So, there was only one logical conclusion I could come to. Though his throat was still severely burned, Linz tried to scream, "Logical? You think that killing me is logical?" To ensure the man wouldn't be heard, Crane covered Lin's mouth with his hand. Linz looked into Crane's eyes just as he was about to try something. The tone of the man's glare had darkened considerably. He was no longer talking to Dr. Jonathan Crane too. It was the Scarecrow. "You listen to me, you worthless little lepton. I've worked long and hard to get Gotham into the perfect position for the final phase of my plan, and you won't ruin that. Once I become mayor, I can get all the funding I need to perfect my fear toxin. Then, when it's ready, I'll use my connections as the Scarecrow to get it distributed. I'll use one of the most powerful cities in the world to show the entire planet how powerful fear really is." Lin had little energy to ask, "What the hell are you planning to do?" as the toxin was starting to take effect. "As the Scarecrow, I'm going to see to it that my toxin rains down on this city like a cloud of death," the Scarecrow said in a voice that was utterly. "And then, as this city's mayor, I'm going to make sure the police can't do a damn thing as this city rips itself apart. Once the city has reached the brink of oblivion, then I'll announce they've found a way to cure everyone. There'll be just enough people left alive to rebuild this city back up. The world will see what fear was able to do and they will respect its power. All of the data that I'll get on how people react to fear is just a bonus." "You're insane. Batman's gonna stop you," Lin said, barely able to speak. "No, he won't. I've abandoned all fear, making others powerless to stop me." The Scarecrow removed his hand from the man and transformed back into his Crane persona. "Please, Mr. Linz, enjoy the afterlife. I'm sure there will be lots of fire to play with where you're going." Linz flatlined just as Crane left. He had a strange smile on his face, clearly enjoying what he had just accomplished. He was starting to have a good day. Naruto, Bruce, Alfred, and Iruka had a lot of planning to do after deciding to take the big trip. They decided that they might as well make the most of their hospital stay by organizing everything. As they sat next to them, Dick and Barbara were talking about something like, "So, you and the family are going to Japan, huh? That's gonna be fun." Barbara said, "Don't worry, Barb, we won't be gone for long. A week at most. I'd love for you to come with us, but something tells me your father might have an issue with that." Dick could hear excitement mixed with a hint of disappointment in Barbara's voice. "Yeah, like Daddy would ever let me go anywhere with a boy if he's not around," Barbara replied with a slight scowl. "My dad is so overprotective of me sometimes. I'm a big girl, and I can take care of myself." Dick understood his point of view, saying, "That's not entirely fair to him. He spends all day dealing with the worst people the world has to offer. Murders, rapists, and drug dealers are the norm for him. You gotta understand how he feels. You've dealt with a lot of those people too, you know. Most boyfriends would find a father like that annoying." Although she was aware of his correctness, Barbara wasn't in the mood to hear it. "Stop being rational and kiss me already." There was a commotion close by as Dick was contentedly leaning in. "Wait a minute, is that Harvey's room?" Bruce exclaimed as he realized where it was coming from. The voice that shouted, "I told you, we're not crazy," was unmistakably Harvey's. It had a similar sound to the one he had used at the DA's office. "Oh, that's not good. Why did he say is there more than one person back there?" Naruto said, aware that the voice was bad. Harvey shouted, "Let us go, you bastards," and rushed into the waiting area. Grace was following him while he remained in his hospital gown. With a terrified expression, she said, "Harvey, please, get back in there. The doctors just want to talk to you." "Shut up. They don't want to talk, they just throw us in the loony bin. We can't let that happen," Harvey said, turning around and giving her the backhand. Harvey initially appeared irate, but after seeing what he had done up close, he changed his mind. "We hit her? Oh God, we must have hurt her," Harvey said in his normal voice as Grace sobbed on the ground. "Oh, suck it up," Harvey yelled in a different tone. "Grace can't handle us now. She can't take what we've become." Harvey Dent was too weak, but his darkness was too stupid. Now we're something better. He's gone, and only Two-Face remains. Harvey continued to flail, struggling with himself. He abruptly stopped and raised his head. His expression was one of unmistakable acceptance. "There's no use fighting it. The more we fight, the worse it gets. It's time for us to be who we are, and do what we are destined to do." "Stop talking like that. You're not Two-Face, you're my fiancé and I need you," said Grace as she rushed up to him and draped herself over his arm. "We're sorry, Grace," Two-Face said, stroking her cheek. "You've been kind to us, but you have no role in what we're going to do next. Rest well, sweetheart." He suddenly clenched his fist and gave her a forceful slap. Everyone in the room was shocked when Grace suddenly vanished. After giving them all a furious glance, Two-Face turned to face the closest window. Before anyone could intervene, he quickly ran for it and dove out. "Harvey, what in God's name happened to you?" asked Bruce, who was shocked by what he had just seen. Crane said, "Fascinating," which made everyone realize that he had been watching the entire time. "Amazing, really amazing. Two-Face is a very strange name to choose. I wonder where that could have come from. It seems that those burns altered his psyche. It's like they merged together. It's something they started calling him back in law school as a joke." Bruce wasn't feeling particularly funny. "Alfred, would you mind keeping an eye on Grace for us? I need to try to track down Harvey." "Are you going to need help getting him? It'd be kind of bad to leave Iruka here alone with Alfred again," Naruto said, realizing that it was time to find out who was following him and who was staying with Alfred. Barbara made a very wise observation when she said, "If we did leave somebody with him, it'd have to be someone who speaks Japanese so that they can talk to him. Alfred can't tell him war stories all night. Naruto, make a clone and have it stay with Iruka and Alfred. I need to be certain Harvey won't do any more damage to himself or others." Bruce didn't want to spare anyone for this, but fortunately he wouldn't have to. He spoke as though he already had something in mind. Naruto expressed his relief at not being stranded at home by saying, "Sure, once we're somewhere that people can't see me, I do it." "And I'll go and get the suits," Dick interrupted, eager to clear the air. "How long before we can leave?" he asked. Bruce was already focused on being Batman, "The moment that we can. I've seen a lot of good people in this city lose themselves in the darkness, and I'm not going to let it happen to Harvey. Not if there's anything that I can do about it." Rupert Thorne was in a very good mood at the moment. He had won the court battle, and it was all but over. The police had nothing on the prosecution's main witness because he had retracted his statement. For now, he was as free as a bird, and he intended to remain so. At the moment, he was making use of his freedom to go to Gotham National Bank and do some business. He intended to do that today because it was more difficult to track his money when he was moving it around a lot. Standing at the counter with his two guards behind him, Thorne told the bank teller, "Now this portion of my money needs to be moved to the account for my construction business, and this cash here, move it over to the waste management fund." "Yes sir, we can do that for you. Do you wish to pay for the fees out of your general fund as usual?" The teller was busy trying to write down all of this, but it was a lot of money to handle. Thorne was about to respond when his eardrum was struck by a metallic noise. Thorne was greatly irritated by the man behind him who kept tossing a coin into the air. "Stop fumbling with that damn coin. I'm trying to focus here, and your noise is making that impossible," he said, glancing at the man in the trench coat. "Really?" the man said in a disgusted tone, "isn't it ironic that after all the crap you've done in your life, you're going to get mad at a man for tossing a coin?" The tone in which the man spoke bothered Thorne. "Do you have any idea who you're talking to? If you've got any sense at all, turn around and leave here right now, before my bodyguards make you. Tell ya what, we'll flip this one more time. If it lands on this side, we'll leave you be." "If it lands on the other side though," said the man in the trench coat, holding up the coin he had been flipping. He then turned to the other side of the coin, which was burned, and said, "Well, then you'll see." Thorne, certain that this man was insane, sneered, "A coin toss? That's fine by me. I've always been a lucky guy." When Thorne stopped talking, the man flipped the coin, apparently pleased by the response. It fell directly into the man's hand. The outcome, which only he could see, was, "Well, look like your guards don't share that trait with you." After drawing his weapon, he shot both guards in the forehead. Thorne just tried to make sense of what was happening while everyone else in the bank screamed. "My men! Do you have anyone what you just started?" the man said, drawing his weapon more quickly than a gunslinger. The man removed his hat to reveal that it was none other than the recently dubbed Two-Face. "Actually, you were the one who started it," he said. "You burned half our body and half of our father's coin. This is all on you, Mr. Thorne." "Oh shit, that Firefly guy did a number on you." Thorne winced at the man's appearance. "Well, I guess that's what you get for playing the hero, pretty boy." Two-Face said, "You're awful brave for a man with a gun pointed at him. Do you think that we won't shoot?" Because he wanted to see this man frightened. but he appeared so composed right now. I've been around the block a couple of times, Harvey, Thorne continued, unperturbed. If you were just here to shoot me, you would have done it already. You've got something bigger in mind. The question is, what could that be? Simple, we're going to finish your trial. You didn't think that our injury was going to stop that, now did you? Two-Face said, realizing that this would be easier than he had anticipated. Well, looks like all the effort we put into stopping you was just wasted energy. Fine, how do you plan to have this little trial of yours? Thorne had thought precisely that. With his gun still raised, Two-Face remarked, oh, you'll see. Let's go for a little ride. Follow my instructions, and you might survive today. It all depends on the flip of a coin. Now dressed as Red Fox, Naruto was trying to remain composed in the Batmobile's back seat, but he couldn't help but notice how upset his father was. His face had a determined expression that the boy had never seen in anyone but himself. He was equally motivated to ensure Harvey's sanity was preserved because he wanted his father to be happy. So Dad, where do you think he'd go? You said that he was going to do something, but we have no idea what that thing is. This was the first step in finding Harvey. Harvey's planning on doing something with Thorne. I know that much. He just shot up and bank and kidnapped him. I've got a feeling I know exactly where he's taking him to, Batman said, referring to the information he had just picked up on the scanner. The Red Fox questioned, really? Where? Now that Ramen was typing on his holo computer and Batgirl was looking at her devices, he was the only one speaking to Batman. There's an old place that Harvey and me used to talk at. If I'm right, which I'm almost certain that I am, that's where he'd want to settle this all, Batman said after reflecting on the past for a number of years. That was the last question the Red Fox wanted to ask. Pushing the issue couldn't be a smart idea because it sounded like a fairly personal one. He had to wonder, though. In the dilapidated area of Gotham, Bruce and Harvey sat by themselves in an abandoned courthouse. Having existed for more than a century, it was among the city's first courthouses. Now it just sat in ruin, the old building barely supported by the wood. Sitting by themselves, the two men discussed recent events while sipping beer. They enjoyed getting together here because neither Bruce's fame nor Harvey's legal profession bothered them. It was a pleasant, peaceful location for the meeting. Before they started, Harvey sat behind one of the decaying desks and opened his drink, taking a big gulp. So, I heard that you just adopted a kid. That true? He asked. Taking a sip of his own beer, Bruce said, it's true, okay. His name is Dick Grayson. He's a great kid, but he lost his parents in front of him. Needless to say, we found something in common. Well, I guess we're kind of like a big brother to me sometimes, so it should all work out. Besides, Alfred raised you. He'll save your ass if need be. I do like that this will give you reason to stick around Gotham and not vanish for almost 8 freaking years again. Harvey had never considered the possibility that his old friend would make a very good father. Bruce knew what he deserved. I was 16, Harvey, and I needed some time. You were over your father's dead, but there was still a part of me that wasn't over what happened to my parents. In a way, I still didn't trust this city. Don't tell that you think I came back a worse person? Harvey couldn't possibly say that. No, it was good for you. I don't know where you went, but you came back with a whole new outlook on life. It was perfect timing too, because you came back right as I started my career as lawyer. Who knows where I'd be without you? Maybe this time in a couple of years, I'll be trying some big case as DA, huh? I know that you'll get there someday soon, Bruce said, full of confidence in Harvey. You're gonna be Gotham's White Knight. Heck, I might even fix up this old courthouse just for you. Give you a special place to finally end all of the crime in Gotham. That makes the two friends laugh, and they clink their beers together. It's true that Bruce hoped Harvey would be the White Knight so the Dark Knight could finally take a break. Well, perhaps one day. Thorne discovered that his gag was stuck in his mouth and his hands behind his back were tied. Two-Face had a gun to the back of his head as he was pushed to his knees. Probably the most difficult situation he had ever encountered was this one. He wanted to bitch about it, but it was hard because of the gag in his mouth. Keep your damn mouth shut. We'll let you talk when it's time. We still need to get ourselves an audience for this trial, Two-Face said, slapping him in the back of the head with his gun as he attempted to grunt in frustration. MPH, bum. Thorne grunted again, but Two-Face couldn't understand his words clearly. However, he was able to infer what man was thinking when he said, we need an audience to tell the world what occurred here. We don't want this city to ever forget it. We know that someone's going to show up soon enough, it's just a matter of time. The courthouse's front door broke down as if on cue. Standing in the doorway with his entire team behind him was Batman. Upon seeing them, Two-Face appeared pleased, saying, "Ah, the hero of Gotham City. We were expecting Bruce Wayne, but you'll work just as well." "I followed Bruce here and told him to go home," Batman stated, essentially deceiving him. "This is not something he's qualified to handle. You've got a lot of people who care about you, Mr. Dent. Please, put down the gun." After cocking his weapon, Two-Face declared, "Dent is gone. Our name is Two-Face, and we will shoot this man if you come so much as an inch closer to us." With a step back, they all said, "Take it easy, we're only here to keep you from doing something foolish." "Foolish? Hemp." Two-Face yelled with rage. "The only thing foolish about us is that we actually used to believe in the justice system. No, we know exactly how justice actually works now. It's all about luck in this world. Why do children starve in Africa while politicians in America get fatter by the day? Why does the Joker manage to survive the impossible while police officers die from a single bullet? Why do people like this fat fucker Thorne go on while people like us get burned half to death like some overdone turkey? Luck. It's all luck. It's the only thing in this world that's truly fair." Batman said, "Please Harvey, you know that's not true. The system works if we just let it." He was shocked that this insane man was the person he had spent so many years growing up with. Pulling up his burnt coin, Two-Face said, "No, you know what works. This coin is what works. It's time to see if Thorne is as lucky as he claims to be." With a loud grunt, Thorne said, "HHM, MPGH, HHM, once more." It was obvious to everyone that it was a help call. Despite his entreaties, Two-Face flipped his coin. Everyone held their breath as the coin fell into his hand. The tension was high because the heroes were unsure of his next move depending on which side the coin landed on. Two-Face furrowed his brow in displeasure as he looked down at the coin. Thorne was knocked out after being struck in the head by the butt of this gun, which said, "Bastard really is lucky." "Okay, this is good, you didn't have to do it," Batman said with a smile. "Now, put the gun down so that we can talk this out." "What about you, Dark Knight? How lucky is a person like you?" Two-Face asked, pointing his gun at Batman. The Red Fox exploded. "Would you shut up about luck already?" Just as Batman was about to speak. "We're sorry, Shorty, what did you just say to us?" Two-Face said as his head shot to him. "I said to shut up," the Red Fox responded. "Oh poor you, you've had bad luck in your life." "Who cares? Everyone's had bad luck. Some people have it worse than others, yeah, but not everyone does bad stuff like you do. I've got horrible luck, but I'm doing something good. Why can't you?" "You've got bad luck, brat." "Well, why don't we just see about that?" Two-Face said, glaring at the boy and not liking what he had said. Everyone held their breath until the coin flipped again. When he saw the outcome, the Two-Face lifted his gun and said, "Looks like the kid was right." "Watch out," yelled Ramen, prepared to shove his brother aside. Unfortunately, the bullet struck the Red Fox in the stomach because he was not quick enough. His brother arrived just as the Red Fox collapsed to the ground. Looking at the boy, Batgirl ran up as well and said, "Oh thank God, the armor stopped the bullet. That's gotta hurt like hell though." "Ya don't say," the Red Fox screamed, gripping his stomach sorely. "Are you proud of yourself? You just shot a child. What kind of person does that? What gives you the right to flip your coin and do that?" Robin asked the villain, while Batman gaped in shock. Two-Face was slightly surprised. As his father had said, what does give us the right to do that indeed? How can we use this coin if we won't turn it on ourselves? That's it. That's what we have to do. He would injure a child. Bruce began to say, "Harvey, don't," but it was too late. That coin was poised to determine Two-Face's destiny. He caught the coin and glanced at its landing spot. Well, there it is. I guess we shouldn't be surprised. It was the side that had been burned. Something flew at Two-Face as he raised the gun to his throat and was ready to shoot. The gun flew from his hand when a batarang struck it. In a split second, Batman was in front of Two-Face, slamming his knuckles into the man's face. The man went down, so there was no holding back on the hit either. Even though he was only partially conscious, he could hear Batman speaking. With a broken heart, the Dark Knight questioned, "Harvey, why'd it have to be you?" Uncertain if he had actually heard what he had said, Two-Face faded out. Batman gave the man a brief glance before turning away. "Batgirl, call Gordon so that he can come and pick him up. Oh, and Red Fox, are you sure that you're okay?" he said, unable to look at him any longer. "I think I'll have bruise, but it'll be okay. What about you, Batman, are you all right?" the Red Fox said as he approached him while continuing to hold his side. Batman looked down and said, It's nothing that I can't get through, in an unconvincing tone. I just never thought I'd be doing this with him. If I can't even protect my best friend, then what can I do? The Red Fox was not going to allow his father to feel this way. He approached him and said, "Dad, this wasn't your fault, and Harvey's not gone. He's just lost. You can't be sad, because you're his best friend. You need to help him find his way." He whispered, "Don't ever change, son. This world needs people like you too damn much." Batman didn't even look up, instead embracing his son as he had done at the hospital. After 15 minutes, Gordon showed up and took Harvey to Arkham. If he was ever to return to his former self, assuming he ever could, he would require extensive medical care. But Bruce was determined to try no matter what. That would be disappointing his son. Bruce made the final scan of the night as Batman after sending Barbara home and putting Naruto to bed. Actually, it was more of an excuse to take a breath of fresh air and reflect than it was a scan. He was observing the city from the top of a building. Harvey repeatedly appeared in his thoughts, but he would not stay there for long, until he noticed the person standing behind him. A sensual voice said, "Hey there, tall, dark, and handsome. What's brought you to my neck of the woods?" As Batman put it, "I just needed to clear my head. You could say that I had a very rough day." Batman knew it could only be Catwoman. As Catwoman put it, "You mean everything with the DA and Firefly? It's been the talk of the town all day." Catwoman had already heard about it. "I'm not surprised," said Batman. "It's one of the bigger blunders that I've had as of late." "Still blaming yourself for the world's problem, big guy? You know that you can't do that to yourself," Catwoman said, putting her arms around him in an attempt to console him. With a slow approach, Batman turned to face her and said, "You know, it's funny, Red Fox said something pretty similar to that today." Reflecting on the boy, Catwoman remarked, "He's a special kid, and she wanted to learn more about him." "I don't know how you do that. I should be arresting you right now," Batman said, losing himself in her emerald eyes. "Are you saying that you want me to stop?" Catwoman asked, licking her lips until they were so close that Batman could feel her breath. "Not a chance," Batman uttered, drawing them closer. The kiss grew deeper as they groaned. They were gasping for air after a short while. According to Catwoman, "If you're looking for some comfort tonight, I know right where you can find it." She was aware of his needs. Batman had a single rule. The masks stay on. "So die, but you know how this works." "Deal," said Catwoman. "Maybe I'll keep the whip this time too." Was not the first time they had done this. In retaliation, Batman said, "Then maybe I'll break out the cuffs." Catwoman simply drew him back into the kiss without saying anything. The two of them would have a very interesting evening. Bruce was feeling a lot better after spending a long night with his old friend to decompress. Now he could easily concentrate on organizing their journey to the Hidden Leaf. After returning to the village on the same plane as Iruka, they intended to spend roughly 3 days finishing their tasks. They were only able to keep Batman away from his city for that long. On a few of those days, Naruto would spend time with his friends, including Hiruzen, the gang from Ichiraku, Ino, and even the children from the Hidden Sand, who came to visit him. Giving Naruto the long-awaited answers to his pressing questions remained the main focus. The boy was ecstatic about everything that Naruto and Bruce discussed as they strolled through Gotham, saying, "It feels like forever ago since I left the Hidden Leaf, and I can't believe that we are leaving tomorrow." "Close," Bruce said, complying. "It's been about 4 or 5 months. That's practically the same thing to an 8-year-old. Still excited to be going. Naruto laughed at the joke. He did have a problem. "You're sure that it's okay if we go? The Joker's still out there. I think you said the Penguin's still doing stuff, and we still didn't know who the Scarecrow is." "Well, you know something that I don't? If there is, then just say it. We're going on our trip anyway," Bruce said, recognizing his son's reluctance. Naruto scratched his head and muttered, "That night you saw that guy in the alley and we came to get Dick. I smelled something. It's another one of the things that's hard to explain." When Bruce first adopted the boy, he recalled hearing something along these lines. "I almost forgot. Some of your senses are enhanced because of thing we're going to tell you about in the Hidden Leaf." Naruto replied with a nod. "I could kinda smell the fear toxin on Dick, and I thought I smelled that stuff again when we were at the hospital. That Crane dude smelled just like it." Bruce was stopped in his tracks by a sudden occurrence. If he smelled like it, he either had to be near it or was the one making it. Even worse, Dr. Crane was Firefly's therapist, and the man died right after Crane left. We couldn't even figure out how Firefly had gotten loose in the first place because all of the tapes had been wiped clean that day. The only person who could do all of that would be the head of the asylum." Naruto said, "Wait, I thought that Thorne was the one who wanted to get out Firefly, not understanding his father's meaning. Bruce concluded his thought process. He was, but I recently found out that Thorne is funding Crane's campaign. I'm starting to think that Crane and Scarecrow may be more closely related than we originally thought. Good job, Naruto. You may have just cracked this case wide open. The compliment made Naruto smile. Haha, yeah, because I'm a super smart ninja, he exclaimed. Bruce was undoubtedly thrilled to see his son so happy. They both stopped and waited for Alfred after realizing they had arrived at the street where he was to pick them up. So, when we get there, we'd to get you checked out health-wise. They've got the woman who's supposed to be the best doctor in the world coming. Her name is Tsunade, and they've actually said that she's cured the impossible more than once. You won't need anything like that, but you still need to be checked out by her to be safe. We'll get it done on the second day if we can, Bruce said, raising his voice for the next sentence. Until now, they had been speaking quietly so that onlookers wouldn't hear them. Naruto didn't mind. As long as I get to see my friends and find out why the villagers hate me, that sounds good. Hey look, Alfred's here. When Bruce realized he was right, he moved from the sidewalk to the street. When Alfred arrived, they were able to enter. Bruce felt that everything had gone smoothly as they drove away. He was unaware that someone had been listening in on the Tsunade part. Anywhere he went, the man seemed to lower the temperature. He had blue skin and was dressed in a suit that kept him extremely cold. He was concealed in a sewer grate directly beneath the spot where Wayne had been waiting for his butler. He had heard all about the healer woman because of this. Victor Freeze was this man, and he had been very interested in this news. Victor had previously excelled as a medical researcher, especially in the area of cryogenics. Nothing seemed to be able to ruin the happy life he and his wife Nora led. Until Nora was given less than a year to live due to a terminal illness, that is. In a desperate attempt to save his wife's life, Freeze placed her in a cryogenic chamber. At least he believed it would give him time to study his wife's illness. Upon discovering what he was doing, the lab where he worked barged in and told him to stop. Freeze fell into a vat of the same substance that had been keeping his wife alive during the process. Even though his body was practically frozen, he managed to stay alive thanks to his brilliance and sheer willpower. But there was a price for it. Freeze needed to stay as cold as he could at all times. He had to figure out how to keep the temperature of wherever he was low because his frozen body could no longer withstand typical temperatures. But he didn't care about any of that. Keeping his wife alive was his top priority. Using his expertise in cryogenics, he had developed tools and weapons that enabled him to break into his former laboratory and reclaim his wife. He promised not to let her go again after he got her. He now stole from affluent Gotham using his technology. He started looking for a cure for his wife using the money he had received. He had yet to see any results, but this Tsunade person had previously cured the impossible. In his typical robotic voice, Freeze said from beneath the grate, "Perhaps I finally found someone that can save my sweet Nora. Time for me to call in a few favors," he said. Only a day later, the Waynes flew toward the hidden leaf from the Gotham military base. Barbara recognized that Dick had to leave his girlfriend behind, even though he had been a little sad about it. To ensure the safety of the mansion, Alfred had to stay at home as well. However, he told the others to enjoy themselves to the fullest and they hurried off in search of the hidden leaf, with Naruto being ecstatic the whole time. Bruce did everything he could to keep the boy seated. They touched down very early in the morning, almost at the break of day. Like the people on the plane, people had only just started to wake up. Naruto was still bouncing like a little madman, so that was to be expected. As he made his way from the landing area to the village gate, he was going crazy. He exclaimed, "Yes! This gonna be so much fun! I can show everyone what a super awesome ninja I am now. Let anyone fight me, and I'll show him." Which actually caused some dust to be kicked up on the dirt path. "I'm sure that you would, Naruto, but let's try not to draw too much attention to ourselves while we're here," Bruce replied in Japanese. Over the course of the following few days, they were all honing the language they would be using. Naruto wasn't overly concerned about it. "I'm not scared of the mean villages, I've got family here with me. As long as you're here nothing else matters. Plus, I get to find out why they hate me now, and that'll make everything easier." Bruce had no idea how that revelation would play out, but he hoped his son was correct. He made the decision to divert the boy's attention by saying, "Hey look, we're at the gate. Looks like there's some people waiting for us there." As he ran toward the gate, Naruto exclaimed, "Really? Then what are we waiting for?" Behind him, everyone laughed at his enthusiasm. As Dick put it, "I've never seen someone who cares about people as much as he does. It's a good trait to have really." Dick was happy that his brother could reconnect with his old friends. As Iruka put it, it'll be very good motivation for training. Although, he already trains harder than anyone his age I've ever seen. I hardly even have to push him either, Bruce said. That's actually the only thing that worries me about him. Sometimes he doesn't know when to quit. He rushes in too quickly, and could end up getting him hurt one of these days because he did think it through. Iruka knew a lot more than Bruce thought. When you're giving young children these kind of skills, it makes them feel invincible. We have to work with them so that they don't go too crazy when they get in an actual combat situation. Does that make sense? Bruce said, remember, I trained Dick in martial arts just like I did Naruto. Believe me, I know how it goes. Bruce had experienced the same thing with Dick. Observing how far away Naruto had come, Dick said, do you think that we should catch up with him? I mean, just to make sure that he doesn't tackle anyone. When Bruce and Iruka realized he was correct, they all started running in Naruto's direction. Bruce actually anticipated that he would tackle Hiruzen to the ground when they arrived, saying, good thing he's a Hokage. I don't think a regular old man could take that. Despite his best efforts, Iruka couldn't help but chuckle at his boss. Ino and the Sand siblings stood around him, laughing too. With a sly smile, Naruto leapt to his feet and said, sorry, old man. It's just been a while. Hiruzen said, that's quite alright Naruto, and he brushed himself off. He didn't care because he was so delighted to see his surrogate grandson. I'm just glad you're here. Ino and Temari embraced Naruto from both sides after he stood up. Temari saw the boy's slight flush and said, see, I told that he missed me. Right Naruto? Naruto nodded slowly while glancing at the ground. What about me? You missed me too, right Naruto? Ino wanted to join in on the fun. Naruto squirmed out of their grasp and ran over to Gaara and Kankuro, saying, stop it you guys. Gaara, your sister's weird, Naruto said. Yes, but she's my sister, so I'm not really supposed to point it out. Gaara had no intention of disputing that. As Kankuro pointed to Ino, he said, I'm pretty sure that all girls are weird, adding, especially her. She said that her dad can go into people's minds and mess with them. Adorably, Ino protruded her tongue at him and said, yeah, and I'll make mess with you if you're mean to me. Hiruzen chuckled as he observed the kids, recalling the time when his own kids were this age. Nice to see that some things never change, fellas. He said, glancing at the other adults. As Bruce observed the children enjoying themselves, he remarked, when it's things like this, I'd have to agree. Hopefully the taste of the ramen around here hasn't changed either, because that kid has been dying for some Ichiraku. That's right where I was going to suggest we head. In fact, the whole meal's on me, Hiruzen said, demonstrating that he hadn't forgotten. You must be going senile old man. I'm gonna eat so much that you go broke. Come on guys, Naruto said as he began to listen. Gaara shouted, hey, not so fast, as his friend started to run. You need to wait for us. Without any concern for the adults, the children all began to run after him. It didn't seem necessary for them all to pursue Naruto once more, so Dick said, don't worry guys, I've got this one. Like a racehorse, Dick took off, allowing the other to rest for a moment. Iruka was amazed at how energetic they were. Something tells me we're gonna be chasing them a lot these next few days. I noticed that the Cage's kids are here, so Naruto was telling the truth about being friends with them. Part of me really thought that he was pulling my leg. Bruce remarked, nope, those guys are inseparable when they're together, as they began to make their way to the ramen stand. I think he's closest with Gaara. Speaking of, how's he been doing, Lord Hokage? Hiruzen felt a bit odd when he heard his official to him. First, you're not one of my men, just call me Hiruzen. Second, I've been told Naruto's been very good for the boy. Between finally having a friend in Jiraiya fixing his seal, he's doing much better. Apparently he couldn't even sleep before because the demon would take him over if he did. Iruka sighed at the thought of that. No sleep, now that really is hell. Good thing that it all worked out. Naruto was pretty quick to blush when the girls hugged him. Does he have a crush on them or something? We'll have to wait and see if Naruto is able to eat Hiruzen entirely out of house and home. I know for sure that he doesn't think of Ino that way, Bruce said, having done some research on the subject. They're just friends. Temari, though, I think that could be something in a few years. He said, it's a good thing that I'm rich, or I'd be very pissed off at you two right now. Hiruzen didn't find the joke as funny as the other two did. Well, you are, so deal with it, Bruce said, giving the man a slight elbow push. There is no time for anyone to be upset because we have a lot of things to do this weekend. This is where things are going to get really interesting. After making promises to the Penguin, Black Mask, and even the Riddler, Mr. Freeze managed to secure a helicopter and a pilot, and they took off seconds after the military plane, following it all the way to the new island with his wife in the cargo hold. The pilot was shocked to learn that there was a place on Earth that no one had ever heard of, and it raised many questions that he would never be able to answer. A few miles from a sizable village, the pilot touched down on a narrow strip of dirt. Seriously, this place isn't on a single map that I've ever seen. How is that even possible? It's the 21st century for God's sake, he said endlessly as the rotors ceased to spin. Freeze reached into his pocket and produced a handgun of some sort with a blue cylinder attached. He directed it at the pilot. Geography is the least of my concerns at the moment, sir. There's plenty of reasons that people might not know about this place, but none of them really matter. I can already see that you're going to be more trouble than you're worth. There's no time for me to be distracted by your chorusties. I'll find a way home on my own. Thank you very much for your services. The pilot began to ask, but was never given the opportunity to finish. Own way home? How in the hell do you plan to? Freeze lifted his weapon and fired, transforming the man into an ice cube with a strange mist and ray mixture. After leaping from the helicopter, the villain took the pod that held his wife. He intended to find Tsunade as soon as possible after locating a location to store his wife. Since Pod could only keep his wife frozen for 5 days, he didn't have time for her to take even a single break. Never fear, my cold angle, you'll be ready soon. Your warm heart will finally be able to thaw my frozen soul. At long last, we'll be together. Nothing will stand in my way this time. At least not anything that plans on living. Freeze had no doubt that he could save her. As Naruto and his friends approached, Tucci exclaimed, "Thank God, he's finally back. Ayame, get some water boiling. We're gonna have a lot of ramen to make." "Dad, what are you going on about this time? If you're just trying to attract customers again, I swear I'll," Ayame said as he emerged from behind the counter to see what his father was yelling about. When she noticed Naruto approaching them and waving, "Tucci, Ayame, I'm here," she came to a halt. Ayame shouted, "Naruto," and threw her arms wide open to the boy. "Oh, we missed you so much," Naruto exclaimed as he leapt at the girl, who caught him and twirled him around in an embrace. "It's not nearly as much fun around here when I don't get to see your smiling face at the counter every day." Next to them, Tucci touched the boy's shoulder after she put him down and said, "Not just that, our profits took a dip when you ran off. I think half of the money that we made was from the Hokage trying to feed you." "Yeah, but I really like my new home though. Do you want to meet my family?" Naruto said, feeling a little sheepish. Realizing that they had inadvertently caused him to feel a little guilty, Ayame replied, "Of course," adding, "We'd love to meet them." "Oh yeah, and these are my friends." Naruto realized that he had not yet introduced his friends. The blonde girl with green eyes is Tamari, and the other blonde is Ino. The kid with red hair is Gaara, and his brother Kankuro is standing next to him. Tamari is also their sister. Dick caught up to them just as they were all saying hello. "How to get your little legs to run so fast? Seriously, I'm in good shape, but you guys are working me out," he said, panting slightly as he approached them. Ayame muttered to herself, "Wow, you really are in good shape," as she turned to face the boy. "Naruto, who is this?" she asked. "This is my big brother, Dick Grayson. He can do all kind of awesome circus flips and stuff," Naruto said, gesturing to Dick, who flushed at the sight of the girl. Observing his firm hold, the girl raised her hand and shook his hand, saying, "It's very nice to meet you, Dick. How kind of you to come here and support your brother." Yeah," Dick replied as he regained composure. He had a girlfriend back home, and even though the brunette was adorable, my girlfriend Barbara wanted to come too, but she had too much stuff going on at home. Ayame understood his motivation and found it endearing that he was making a sincere effort to be faithful. "Well, she's a very lucky girl. How much longer till your guy's dad gets here?" she asked. "Well, looks like the gang's all here. You two must be Tucci and Ayame. Great to finally see you both in person." Bruce and the others arrived at that precise moment. Tucci could tell by the man's suit that he was well off, and he was okay with that. "It's good to finally meet you too. Naruto seems very happy, so you're already good in my book." Naruto deserved a little luxury after the hell the village had put him through. Bruce paused to look at the boy and said, "It's been my pleasure, and once we're eating, I'd be happy to tell you why. Hiruzen seems pretty eager to pay for Naruto's ramen." "Lord Hokage, do we need to be concerned that you're going insane? I think that's what it would take to agree to something like that," Tucci said, glaring at the older man. That joke had already worn Hiruzen out, so he said, Why don't we just go sit down? If we really are going to empty my wallet, I'd prefer that we get over with. Partly due to his own hunger, Iruka said, understandable Lord Hokage, let's do this. Two men were already seated at the stand when they all turned to face it. When one of the men saw Naruto, his mood instantly soured. Hey, Jin, you seeing what I'm seeing? He asked. After figuring out what his friend was talking about, the man named Jin said, well, would you look at that? That little thing came back. It's gotta have some nerve. Tucci wasn't going to allow this to escalate. Hey, don't you call him a thing. That boy is here with several paying customers. If you've got a problem with him, then feel free to take your business elsewhere. One of the men growled as he passed Naruto, saying, I don't know where you came from, but you better go back there real soon. That was precisely what the men intended to do. Naruto screamed, ah, as the man spat on him. Oh come on, that's just nasty, he said, wiping it from his cheek as best he could. Bruce had no intention of letting that go unpunished. Bruce grabbed the perpetrator and threw up against a wall as Ayame assisted Naruto in wiping the spit from his face. If you don't want me to break every single last bone in your body, you're going to apologize to my son for what you just did, Bruce said. Before Jin could get within an inch of his friend, Bruce stabbed him in the throat as he attempted to assist him. As he watched his friend fall, the man became aware of how far he had gone. At that point, you would think he would be wise enough to say, that thing is your son, and apologize. Bruce clenched his fist as tightly as he could and said, yes, my adopted son. If you don't apologize to him now, then so be it. It was enough to say, okay, I'm sorry, please, just leave me alone, to the man. The man fell to the ground as Bruce released him, saying, a coward, just like I figured. Take your friend and go home. Fearful of what Bruce might do, the man seized Jin by the collar and pulled him away. Are you all right, Naruto? That jerk didn't get to you, did he? Bruce asked his son after they had left. After he was completely cleaned up, Naruto remarked, my skins are too thick for him to do that, but at least they remembered me. They're just mean, Naruto, don't even think about them. Why do they do that to you? Gaara said, understanding his friend's feelings. I don't have a clue. I'm supposed to find out today, right Dad? Said Naruto, wishing he knew. After what he had just witnessed, Bruce found it difficult to say no, of course I will, he said. I don't know if you want your friends to stay for it or not, but I'll tell you everything right after we're done eating. He interrupted his father, saying, no, I trust them. If they're my friends, then they can take it. Naruto was not sending them away. Hiruzen was occupied with considering a significant choice of his own during this conversation. One about the boy's ancestry. He was going to require a while to reflect on this, so, we've talked about this enough for the time being. Tucci, get the ramen cooking. I don't know about the rest of them, but I'm damn hungry. Naruto, you better come before I eat it all. Naruto boasted, reverting to his happier self, no way old man, I'll finish that ramen before you can even get to it. All they had to do was that to return their attention to the food. They all ate, laughed, and generally caught up. The group had been hoping for precisely this. Even though everyone was happy, a much less joyful meeting was taking place on the opposite side of town. There was no reunion here in the traditional sense of the word. No, by the end of the day, this would become much more sinister. Nobody knew how it would end. Even though Tsunade had hoped she would never have to enter the Hidden Leaf again, she found herself there. Even though she was in a bar, which made things much more bearable than usual, there were still a lot of upsetting memories present. Tsunade drank her 5th shot of sake and said, well, if I'm going to be stuck in this shithole, I might as well be drunk. Come on Shizune, aren't you going to join me? She asked. Tsunade's assistant, Shizune, was astute enough to realize that at least one sober person was required. No thank you, Lady Tsunade. I think I'll just have a soda or something. Are you sure that you're okay coming here? You told me that you can handle it, Buddha. You were absolutely going to get wasted if you drank with Tsunade. She said, don't start pulling that shit on me, girl. I can handle it like I said, I just need to be wasted to do it. Tsunade was not going to listen to this from her assistant. Trying to think of the best way to reason with her, Shizune started, Lady Tsunade, we didn't have to go. I know that being here must be hard on you with everything that happened to you. Tsunade just continued to cut her off, oh, you mean watching my baby brother die in front of me? Better yet, what about watching your uncle, my lover, die right in front of me less than a year after that? Or wait, did you mean that it must have been even worse for me because I'm supposed to be the best medic in the world, and I couldn't save them? As if all that wasn't enough, The village then refused to listen to my pleas to get us more medical ninja. Is that the everything that you were referring to? I didn't mean to bring up your old feelings, my lady. I guess that I'll just let you sit here and drink, was Shizune's only response. Yes, why don't you do that? I'm not turning down the money the council offered me to do this, so I'm just gonna have to deal with the pain. Tsunade replied while sipping on a second sake. Is it cold in here, or is it just me? Then she saw the man standing beside her, clad in a huge cloak that encased his whole body. She wasn't confused by the cloak, but this wasn't nearly as unusual in the ninja world. He said, "Hey buddy, I don't know if you've got some kind of bloodline or what, but if you're the one making it cold, take that shit outside. Some of us are trying to use the booze to warm ourselves." The blue mist pouring out from under his cloak was what was confusing her. A male voice said, "My apologies, Lady Tsunade." The woman, who was frequently identified by her Sanin status, was unfazed by this. The fact that it sounded like two people conversing bothered her. One was in her native tongue, but it sounded robotic, and the other was a man she couldn't understand. As far as she could tell, one voice was translating while the other was speaking in an odd language. He went on, "It's just that I was hoping to have a brief word with you about my wife." Tsunade finished her drink and said, "Frankly, I don't give a shit about your wife right now. I'm kinda trying to get hammered here, so if you want to talk to me, come back in the morning when I've gotten past the hangover. Please, Lady Tsunade, I can't stay in this village long. What my wife has is supposed to be incurable, but I've heard tales that you've done the impossible before. I was thinking that you could do it again." Something along those lines would have required this man to have been patient. "Look here, weirdo," Tsunade said, becoming increasingly frustrated, "I feel for you about your wife, I really do, but I've got my own demons to deal with right now. Is what your wife has going to kill her in the next 12 hours? No? Then I can take a look at her in the morning?" Although he had prepared for this precise scenario, the man hoped it wouldn't have to come to this. His hood came off, exposing Mr. Freeze's icy face. "Okay, icy skin and some kind of metal exoskeleton. Now this is a new one even for me. I've got to ask you your name now." Tsunade didn't know who he was, but his skin and suit were intriguing. Freeze opened his cloak and removed a small cylinder. He said, "My name is Victor Freeze. Is it safe to assume I now have your attention?" As he turned it upside down and poured out a dozen quarter-sized diamonds. "You bet your ass you do," Tsunade remarked, looking at the diamonds. "These are all real. Damn, they must be worth a fortune." Freeze started speaking again and captured Shizune's attention. "You have no idea what I went through to get those and what I had to go through to get here. I had 14 originally, but I had to sell off in order to upgrade my suit with a system that could identify and translate languages. Months upon months of work, and this is all that I have left to show for it. If you go and see my wife right now, they're yours." Tsunade moistened her mouth. She used gambling to cope with the other half of her pain, as drinking was only half the solution. The issue was that she was terrible at every casino game there was. Her losses were so great that she was dubbed the legendary sucker. These diamonds would be very beneficial to her. Without hesitation, Tsunade said, "Hell yeah, just lead the way. If it's even the slightest bit possible to cure her, I'll do it." Following her cheer, Tsunade said, "At last, you're on board. Follow me, I have my wife held up not far from here. I had a much easier time finding you than I'd originally thought, thankfully." Freeze grinned as she stood up. Shizune had more doubts about the entire situation. She said quietly, "Lady Tsunade, we don't know very much about his person. What if he's dangerous?" "Dangerous enough to take me?" Tsunade looked at him with disdain. "Please, if he tries anything I'll shatter his bones like it's nothing. Besides, between those diamonds and what the Leaf's paying me, we'll be able to settle virtually all of my debts. I mean really, what's the worst that could happen?" When she said, "Oh, you just had to go and say that, didn't you?" Shizune's head fell. Once they were seated, Naruto's group ate more ramen in one sitting than Tucci typically sold in a month. When Hiruzen wrote him a check for the bill, along with a sweet little bonus for defending Naruto beforehand, the old man was about to burst into tears of happiness. When everyone was nice and full and the bowls had been licked clean, Naruto could finally discover the truth about the power that he possessed. Although he wouldn't explain why, Hiruzen had specifically wanted to do it atop the Hokage Monument, which is their equivalent of Mount Rushmore. They went straight there because Bruce was certain the man had a reason. And not everyone was especially thrilled about climbing the Hokage Monument. By far the most outspoken was Ino, who said, "My legs hurt from all this climbing. Why couldn't we just do this back on low ground?" "Sorry Ino, but this isn't negotiable. I promise you'll understand someday. This was the ideal location for Hiruzen to explain to them that there was more to the Kyuubi than just the Kyuubi. Someday? I thought that you said we'd get to know everything that you told Naruto, Ino remarked, recalling his previous declaration. If only it were that easy for Hiruzen, you get to find out some of it, but there's one piece of information I have to share today that I can't tell to anyone but Naruto's family. This info would be far too dangerous if it were to fall into the wrong hands. As Bruce put it, so you have more information to share with us? I don't recall that being part of the original plan. Bruce had no idea what sort of information the older man was talking about. It wasn't, Hiruzen said. I only recently decided to give you this information. Seeing Naruto again has gotten me thinking about certain things, mainly what all the boy deserves to know. You'll see what I mean in just a moment. Just a moment, he said, since they had just arrived at the summit of the monument, directly above the carving of the fourth's face. Okay, so now I'm here, in the village, on top of the monument. Now you have to tell me what I did to that made the villagers hate me, Naruto said without hesitation. Iruka felt compelled to remind him, I told you Naruto, you didn't anything, not really. I'm sorry, I'll let your father tell you the rest. It'd be best if this came from him. Bruce said, thank you Iruka, and then he turned to face his son. Naruto, you know how your birthday is on October 10th, right? Was not going to be an easy way to start the conversation. Despite his strange expression, Naruto nodded and said, yeah, but what does that have to do with anything? Do you know what else is significant about that day? Bruce started off with this odd question, which was actually the ideal starting point. That was the day of the Kyuubi attack, Naruto instantly responded. He destroyed like half of the village and the only one that could stop him was the fourth Hokage. The fourth killed the Kyuubi, but he had to die to do it. Bruce thought the boy was fairly close, but he missed one important detail. That's right. Except for the fact that tailed beasts can't be killed, right Hiruzen? Hiruzen was aware that Bruce had deferred to him because Naruto would be more inclined to trust the Hokage when he said, that's true, they're beings of pure chakra. Killing them is virtually impossible. I don't get it, Naruto replied slowly. If you can't kill a tailed beast, then how did the fourth stop the Kyuubi? He had to seal it inside of a newborn child. By sacrificing his life, he was able to save his village along with the people that he loved. If you haven't already guessed it, that newborn child was you. Bruce could see that the boy was beginning to grasp what they were saying. Naruto stepped back and started to tremble. No, I can't be, I'm not a monster. Was the dark secret he had never in a million years thought would exist. You're not a monster, Dick assured his brother. You just have something sealed inside of you. It's like one of those scrolls you've been learning about. No matter what you put in them, it's still just a scroll, right? They all think that I'm the Kyuubi. No wonder they've always hated me. I make them think about the worst day ever every time they see me. Was a sentence Naruto was finding difficult to understand at the time. Gaara had listened the whole time and wasn't going to let his friend experience what he had gone through on his own. He wasn't the only one who had a tailed beast around. Naruto, I know how you feel right now, but it's not your fault. You're like me. You didn't choose to have this happen to you. You made me see that I'm not the monster that's inside of me, so that means that I can't let you think you're a monster either. Naruto, struggling to overcome his fear, began to choke out, so none of you hate me. Of course we don't hate you, why the heck would we? Temari was the first to say. Dude, if we hated you, we'd have to hate our own brother. Kankuro found it hard to believe he was asking that. You're sounding kinda crazy, man. I feel so bad for you. You were beaten and yelled at for something you didn't even do. That's harsh, Ino rushed in, shaking her head at her friend. Hearing all of this, Naruto experienced a wave of relief. They don't hate me, they don't hate me. Dick wrapped his arm around his brother. You're right, like anyone could ever hate you. It's like trying to hate a puppy. You can be mean to it all you want, but it'd be more fun if you just played with it. Haha, I guess, Naruto reverted to his usual foxy smile. But wait, does that mean that all of the weird stuff I can do is because of the Kyuubi? He asked. His observation impressed Iruka. For the majority of children, that's exactly way. It enhances some of your senses, gives you more chakra, and lets you become something bordering on a sensory ninja. Almost makes it sound like a good thing. So, was it pure luck that I got chosen for this? It's because of the day that I was born, was Naruto's final query. He said, that's part of it, but it's not the only reason. Bruce, Naruto, Dick, come over here for a moment. Hiruzen was going to speak next. They all exchanged glances and shrugged. Uncertain of what to anticipate, they approached him. Sound barrier, he exclaimed as he quickly sealed his hands and extended them a few feet away. Bruce screamed, "What the hell?" as a blue sphere encircled them. He said, "Oh, this is the part that didn't want to tell anybody else about," as he suddenly heard nothing from the outside world after what appeared to be a thin wall of light. Hiruzen lit up his pipe prior to saying, "Precisely, this will keep the others from hearing us. Now, Naruto, you being born on the day of the Kyuubi attack is only part of the reason he was sealed inside of you. It was much more due to who your parents were." After a brief pause, Naruto imitated, "Parents. Do you know who they are?" "Yes, I do. Your mother was named Kushina Uzumaki, and she was a beautiful, passionate woman with long red hair. Just looking at her, you'd never guess that she was the holder of the Kyuubi," Hiruzen said, explaining that this part would require a great deal of explanation. "His mom had the Kyuubi before he did." "Seriously?" Dick asked, already feeling lost. "That she did," Hiruzen replied as he continued, "she came here from the Hidden Whirlpool, a village that guarded the Kyuubi's fierce power, until said village was destroyed that it is. Then, that responsibility came to us. For reasons unknown, on the day of Naruto's birth, Kushina's seal broke and the Kyuubi was set free. Realizing that his newborn son would be the ideal new host, as he had already been introduced to the Kyuubi's chakra in his mother's womb, Naruto's father decided to seal the tailed beast into the boy." Everyone was perplexed by that final statement, but Naruto in particular. "Wait, my father sealed him into me. You said that the fourth was the one who did that." "Both of those statements are true, Naruto. Think about it for a moment," Hiruzen said, smiling briefly. Naruto began, "Both of them are true. But wouldn't that mean," but was interrupted by the thought, "Hold on. The fourth was my dad." Bruce asked, "Why didn't I see it before? Who better to seal it inside than your own son, someone that you have complete faith in?" And everything suddenly made sense. Hiruzen understood why he was regarded as the greatest investigator. Well said. Most people would assume that a father would feel he was putting a burden on his son by doing that, but Minato didn't think so. He didn't think that anyone but his son would be able to find a way to use this power for real good. Fathers believe in their sons from the moment that they're born. There were stars in Naruto's eyes as he asked, "Really? My dad believed in me that much?" "Both of your parents did, more than you could ever know." Hiruzen expressed her happiness that the boy was handling this so well, saying, "Kushina was glowing when she found out she was having you. She knew there was great things in your future. Then I'm not gonna let him down. When I get home, I'm gonna learn how to control the Kyuubi's power so that I can be the most awesome ninja ever." Naruto slammed his fist into the air. "That's wonderful, Naruto," Hiruzen said, before changing his voice. "I'm glad that you're happy about all this, but you can't tell another soul who your parents are. The Hidden Rock Village is still very sore about the number of men they lost to Minato during our last war, and they'd love to kill you simply for payback. Do you understand?" With a more solemn expression, the boy said, "Yes, I understand. You can trust me. You can trust us too," Dick said, referring to Bruce and himself. "If there's one thing we're good at, it's keeping secrets." Hiruzen lifted his hands and let go of the barrier, feeling secure now. Inquiring, "What the heck, man? What was so important that we couldn't hear it?" Everyone rushed up to them. "Don't worry, I'll fill you guys in later." Naruto had the ideal response. "We were just talking about our plans for world domination." After a brief period of silence, everyone started laughing. The small joke was well received. Only when Hiruzen pulled something from his pocket and had a worried expression on his face did they stop laughing. "Oh dear, that's not good," he said. When Iruka noticed that his Hokage had extracted a scroll with a glowing seal, she inquired, "Is that a distress seal?" "Yes, I gave to Tsunade in case of emergency." "Come on, we've got to make sure that she's okay," Hiruzen said, putting it back in his pocket without hesitation. Everyone else followed him as he ran down the mountain, even though it was likely that he was only referring to Iruka when he said that. Nobody wanted to miss it, and things were beginning to get really interesting. Once they arrived, they would decide who should and shouldn't go. As she saw Freeze raise a gun to Shizune's head, Tsunade snarled, "I swear to God, if you don't let her go right now, I'll shatter your frozen scrotum." Tsunade had just delivered some rather unfavorable news to Freeze. Even the legendary Sannin was powerless to stop Nora's illness because it had advanced too far. To be honest, if she were removed from the cryogenic chamber, she would perish within minutes. The fact that Freeze had seized Shizune and raised the gun to her skull was not something he was going to stand for. She would have attempted to resist, but the man was completely clad in that metal suit. Her only option was to say, "Lady Tsunade, just take him out. Whatever happens, I'm sure I'll be fine. It's the last person in the world you truly care about, and I could freeze her head solid in an instant. Now, you took my diamonds, so heal my wife," Freeze said, pressing the gun's barrel closer to her temple. "I told you, take your stinking diamonds back. Just let her go, damn it," exclaimed Tsunade, annoyed. "If I could, I would." Freeze refused to compromise. "I don't want the diamonds, I want my wife. Do what you said you'd do, or take away the last thing in the world that matters to you." The ninjas suddenly appeared on the scene as this was happening. They found the woman very easily because the distress signal also served as a homing beacon. Hiruzen didn't even try to object when Bruce barged in with him because he was so worried about Tsunade. The Hokage would soon be happy to have the younger man accompany him. Bruce, shocked that one of Gotham's villains had reached the hidden leaf, exclaimed, "Freeze. What in God's name are you doing here? What in God's name is that thing he's wearing? How the hell do you know him?" was Hiruzen's question, unsure of how to interpret all of this. One of them, Dick, said, "It's Mr. Freeze. He's a supervillain from back home who wears a suit to keep his body frozen. How he managed to get here, I couldn't tell you." "Ah, if it isn't the rich Lil Wayne family, how nice of you to join us," Freeze said, bringing his hand nearer to the trigger. "I really must thank you for leading me to this place. If it hadn't been for your plane, I never would have found Tsunade here. She's going to heal my wife, if she knows what's good for her." "Victor, just calm down. I know what happened to Nora, everyone in Gotham does, and it's terrible, but that doesn't give you the right to do what you're doing," Bruce said, determined to prevent anything negative from happening to Shizune. Freeze laughed when Bruce said, "Please, I was given the right to do this when the twisted hand of fate warped my happy little life. Now, Tsunade, get to work on my wife. I must warn you, my trigger finger is getting itchy." A younger voice rushed into the room and yelled, "You really think this is what she'd want? Naruto, what are you doing here? We told all of the kids to stay outside," said Bruce, who recognized the voice. "How can you think this what your wife would want, Freeze? You lost the only thing in the world that mattered to you, so how do you think she'd look at you if she knew you were about to make the same thing happen to someone else?" he said, but Naruto ignored him because he had other worries. At last, someone was saying something that Freeze could understand. Lacking self-control, he glanced at his wife and muttered, "Nora." Tsunade said, "Go time," noticing that he was preoccupied. As swiftly as a ninja should, she moved behind Freeze and seized him, knocking him to the ground. She knocked him unconscious by smashing his head against the floor and shattering the glass in his suit. With a stammer, Shizune stepped back from him and said, "The crazy bastard was gonna kill me." Tsunade approached her assistant and seized her, embracing her. "I'm so sorry I let this happen to you. I was so stupid to trust him. Kid, whoever you are, thank you. If you hadn't distracted him, who knows what could have happened." Such emotion was uncommon among the Sannin. "He was certainly helpful," Bruce said, glancing at his son. Naruto began to laugh, but it wouldn't last long. "However, I'm more than a little disturbed by the fact he deliberately disobeyed me to do it. This isn't the first time he's put himself in this situation like this either. We had one just like it less than a week ago." "But Dad," Naruto prepared to defend himself. "Not now, Naruto," Bruce thundered. "I'm not mad at you, just worried. We'll talk about it when we get back to Gotham." Then, like a reprimanded dog, Naruto strode back outside. "Ah, children, they always think they're invincible. Now, about Freeze and the woman in the tube thing. What do we do with them?" Hiruzen was delighted to see that Bruce was so worried about the boy's safety. Dick made a joke of it. "If you could just erase Freeze's memory so he didn't know he came here, that'd be great. Then we can just take Nora and him home without them ever knowing they'd even been here." As though it were routine, Hiruzen said, "Okay, I'll make sure it's finished." He left the room with Iruka, who also appeared to accept memory erasure as commonplace. "I was kidding. You can freaking do that?" Dick cried as they left. That being said, the day came to an end. Was it flawless? No, but Naruto's friends continued to view him as a human being, and nobody had been harmed. Could you ask for anything more?
I will continue the story in next part. Till then, we weeb offline.